What up, family? This is the Decisive Element Podcast with Ronnie Portillo. Now let's get it. Welcome, everybody, to the Decisive Element Podcast. Ronnie Portillo here, and we got the beautiful Collette Patricia from Cannabis Balancing. Balancing Cannabis, all right? Get it right one time. God damn it.
Thank you for that interesting introduction.
You're welcome.
Is it a Decisive Element podcast if you don't mess up a little bit on the intro?
It's not.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like it's your signature.
I guess it's becoming my signature, but I don't like it. I'm like, God damn this thing.
Yeah, I kind of like it.
Once again, where's my notebook? God damn it. Write my notebook down. But anyways, yes, thank you for being here. I really appreciate you for coming.
Thank you.
Grateful
I'm happy
that
to be here.
Lined up perfectly while you're in town.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah.
So good.
So we'll just get into it, man. We've been hanging out all weekend, right? I'm sure we'll probably hang out a little bit tonight too.
Yep.
It's been awesome. We've had a lot of experiences. Shout out to Saucy Downs. We saw a concert with him, Coco Jenkins, and who else performed? Bunch of friends performed at the Jam on Friday night, and then Saturday, we had Saucy's video for Good Mood. Y'all see that, right? We're in a good mood right now.
I think it's Big Mood.
Big Mood.
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah, Big Mood. See, once again. Hey, bro, let me drink my coffee real quick.
It's okay. I'll just take over your show for you.
Thank you. Do it.
Hey,
you said this is about you today.
Podcast.
This is about you today, man. So
Yes.
it is.
I
Take
appreciate
over.
it. Yes, thank you. I'm happy to be here. It's really exciting being in Vegas. I feel like coming home here, even though I've never lived here, but I have such
you've never lived here?
No.
Oh.
I have such a beautiful community of friends here.
Yeah.
And just like being here brings a new expression of myself to the surface that I love to explore. So every time I'm in town, it's just, there's always something going on. And then you guys, like your crew just rolls deep. You guys are always just in big groups doing fun things. And
It's crazy. It's pretty
so
cool.
crazy.
I know.
I think you guys don't realize how special it is. I mean, I'm sure you realize how special it is, of course. But like I've been all over around, lived in so many different places, and I've just never really seen that type of community. And so it's just so brilliant to see so many creatives just doing their own thing, just like really, and just having so many people around supporting. It's beautiful.
Yeah, I'm actually new to that crew too, so that's the cool thing. Like, it's like I feel sometimes I feel all weird because like I'm so military and structured sometimes, and then I go out like everyone's fucking creating, everyone's doing something, I'm like, yes, but this is what I want to be doing. So I'm so grateful to be part of it, and like everyone yesterday at Saucy's thing, and everyone's there chilling and vibing.
It's so fun.
It's so dope.
Yeah, when Tree introduced me to everybody in this community, it was kind of funny. They were kind of poking fun a little bit at me. They're like, "Oh, you didn't even know you're a performer. You didn't even know that you're a creative." And I'm like, that makes so much sense.
Yeah.
I've been living my life and shoving myself into this box when I'm really actually a creative and a performer and all these things. And so what I've learned about myself and how to perform and how to just be authentic in front of a microphone of any kind, I've learned so much from these beautiful humans. So I'm just like, I'm so honored and grateful to be here.
Hell yeah. And you know what's cool is that your episode's going to come after right after Trees, right? Yeah.
Oh, perfect.
So it's yours and then Trees and then yours. So it'll be perfect.
Oh, so great. I love
well,
her.
awesome. I'm really glad you're here.
Thank
I'm
you.
grateful that I met you.
Yes, me
I've
too.
gone through some of your meditations, and we'll talk about those.
Yes.
But let's hear about you. Like what started your meditation journey? We started talking a little bit yesterday, but what was the whole thing what led you to meditation? Or what's your story from the get-go? Where the hell do you come from, Collette?
Oh, gosh. I mean, the story is long and intricate, as all of our stories are, but I guess my diving into meditation came after I kind of was going through a really insane life experience and ended a really toxic relationship, and then was kind of just reassessing everything. That relationship led me to kind of wake up in a way of like, holy shit, I'm suffering all the time. So I quit my job as a hairdresser. I moved away from the city that I was living in LA at the time. I moved in with my brother. My sister-in-law's a yoga teacher. And so I just started doing yoga and meditating and like taking care of my body and reading and learning and studying a ton. And so in the process of actually practicing meditation, I was also learning about it, like studying it, studying Buddhism, studying mindfulness meditation, and just trying to understand these different approaches to quieting and calming the mind. So I spent like 2 years really just deep diving into understanding it both from an intellectual level and from an experiential level of trying to gauge what meditation is, how does it serve me, and what kind of comes up for me in wanting to start this practice. So for 2 years, I was just like deep diving into it, meditating every day, really just like learning myself and really watching the benefit that was coming from it. But then I still kind of felt like I was hitting these walls. And so ultimately, all meditation teachings will tell you don't ever mix anything with your meditation practice. That's kind of like standard rule 101. And I had gone through my whole journey of meditation without doing that. I was always just meditating here and then, smoking some weed as my thing later in the day or whatever. Like I never mixed the two. And so then one day I just kind of got to the point that I was like feeling stuck, just feeling like, ugh. And so I've always been a spiritual person in the sense that just have always really had a heart and a devotion for the creator, God, source, whatever you want to call it, just like always been in that like reverence for this entity. And so one day I was just kind of in my suffering, I was in my pain, and I thought, you know what, fuck it, I'm just going to smoke some weed and create an intention and create an environment that's really relaxing and meditative in a way that was aligned to the creator is kind of the mindset that I had. That was my intention. I was seeking some supernatural knowing of some kind. So I created my little spot. I set everything, did all my intentions. I smoked some weed. I laid down, put some headphones on, and I dropped in and had the most profound spiritual experience that I had ever had up to that point in my life.
So cool.
So I was like, oh, okay, this might be a thing. And then a couple days later, I tried it again, and it was the same type of profound experience. I was having these crazy visions. I got this crazy downloads, like all kinds of stuff was happening. And then I was like, okay, maybe this is a thing. So then this was in 2019.
Okay.
So that was when Balancing Cannabis kind of was born. And so I originally created this brand, this platform, this whatever you want to call it, as a way to have new conversations around cannabis, because I was in the cannabis industry at the time. So I was witnessing a lot of the recreation and a lot of unconscious use, unfortunately, and a lot of like gluttonous use of cannabis.
What do you mean by that?
Just like
a bad description.
Just kind of that like consuming to disconnect, right? Just smoking all day, every day as a way to just like tap out. And so, I'm a big proponent for cannabis consumption, regardless of what that looks like. And I don't believe that anybody can tell another human being how much is too much or how much weed is too much weed. But for me, in my journey and my relationship to this plant, I recognized that there was a long period of time that I spent unconscious consuming cannabis. And in that unconsciousness, I was actually creating more suffering for myself, but I wasn't aware of it because I was disconnected. So this practice is so beautiful for so many reasons, but what it does is that when you start to understand the potency of cannabis, when you start to truly respect the potential that it has, and you know how to leverage that potential, it is one of the most potent plant medicines on the planet, right? But we have forgotten that. We don't remember that because we look at it in just like this recreational versus medical versus some states or some people still think it's a drug. It's still like in this, it's all over the place. And so for me, my heart behind everything is just, I want to share how you can use cannabis in a new way, in a different way.
Yeah.
And then the types of experiences that you can have and what can come from those experiences, deep, profound healing, like real, authentic, true healing where you're liberating old things, shame, stuck shit out of your body. You're like actually feeling like, wow, I'm a new person. Something has shifted inside of me. And that gives me the confidence and the courage to show up differently today in whatever I'm doing. And so to me, I have such deep respect for the practice because I feel like the practice was gifted to me to share. I don't feel like it's necessarily mine that I created. I didn't create meditation. I didn't create cannabis, right? And I didn't even really put those two together. I was just kind of called into creating this experience. And then all the education and research and studying and learning that I've done about meditation, and then healing myself of my own depression and my own anxiety, and like learning about the mind and all of the ways that it's impacted not only through meditation, but also in plant medicines, and being able to really help people understand not only what's happening to them when they consume cannabis and meditate, but also how they can leverage this practice for healing.
Yes. A couple of things stuck out to me that I've been really, for my own internal reflection, studying, right? You can read a book, but are you studying the book? And I feel like I'm really learning that within inside myself right now. Because I'll read the book and I'll pick up key things, but I feel like the word when you specifically said studying, it's like you're getting in the weeds of it. You're nitpicking what it's actually saying, what's actually going on. And I think that for me is such a good reflection right now that you brought. It's like, yes, confirming that the book that I told you about, the book that I'm reading right now, The Path of Surrendering, Letting Go, right? Yes. And it's like, that's a real thing for me that I'm working on. It's like surrendering to the flow, surrendering to my emotions, and I let them go. I am not my emotions. I am the witness of my emotions.
Yes.
And I need to really get into that and study what that means so it can really get into me.
Yes.
You know, and another reflection, what came up to me during that was society seems to just keep the way they treat alcohol is kind of the way they're treating cannabis.
Mm-hmm.
They just go to it to get fucked up and numb and not, they're unaware that like all the things that you're saying, there's different uses as this actually good.
Yes.
And I think it's awesome. I read on your website how you said while the states transition, you're trying to bring this to light. It's not just a drug or just to get fucked up and numb yourself. Like there is actually medicine to help you. And you keep saying yesterday, but I told you, I told you Friday night when I see things, I try to find them the flow. There's like a lot of people say similar things, but in different ways.
Right.
You have to have a different experience.
Yes. Well, everything is experiential, even going back to studying. So like you can read every book on earth if you want, but until you truly embody that experientially inside of your being, it's not really going to actually land. Yeah. And I think for me, I spent so much time studying, but I didn't yet have that experiential knowing in a lot of different things, whether that was my own healing journey and my own embodiment, or it was through meditation, or what I've learned through healing myself of the depression and all that stuff. I think that I learned so much. And then because I wasn't fully experiencing that knowing, I still wasn't fully confident. And then once I finally was able to really step in and surrender, right, and have an experience in my body that affirmed or validated everything that I had learned in the mind, then it was just like game over, like complete shift of energy. And so then when I teach or share or speak whatever I'm speaking about now, whether that's healing or that's cannabis or that's meditation or that's supernatural, mystical, spiritual shit, like it doesn't matter what I'm talking about, because now I have this experiential knowing in my body that is so deeply rooted in truth, that's really backed by all of the time and energy that I put into studying and learning with the mind. So
yes. Experience is such a key. Like we can talk about it all we want, but until you experience it for yourself, you're not going to be like totally bought in. It doesn't validate everything that you've been learning. So it's like that's a real big thing that I feel like is coming to me right now. This is that experience. So good, man. So what have you been doing with this then? Like what type of events, right? Just for everyone can know, right? So what type of events do you do? What are your workshops? What are your teachings, or what do you try to share? In what ways do you share this information?
Yes.
Is the best way.
So I'm in the process of trying to create as many different ways for people to work with this material as they want, right? And so the first, like, easiest way to do it is I do virtual weekly cannabis meditation. So you can join from the comfort of your own home, just log in, grab some weed, create a little nest, a love nest is what I call it. Just create a space in your house that's intentional for what we're doing here, right? So like like I said before, I'm a big weed smoker. Like I love to smoke weed. And so I don't delineate in the sense that it's like, okay, now you only use cannabis for ceremony. Like, no. But you have to create some form of differentiating factor that separates this particular practice or this use of cannabis in this way versus how I normally do it, right? And so like maybe I'm smoking a joint with my friends over here, but when it's time to have an experience that's intentional, that's for my healing, that's for my growth, then I create the environment, I set the intention, and I bless the medicine, right? And I'm sure we'll talk about all that too. But so basically you come into Monday Night Meditations, which is just a virtual thing. I have a community that shows up every week, and there's usually between, I don't know, like 40 or 60 people that join these calls, and we just meditate together.
What time?
6 p.m. Pacific time.
6 p.m. Pacific time.
Monday nights.
We'll make sure to have the link on the bio and all the stuff. So you guys can just click on it and shabam.
Yeah, anyone listening or watching, go ahead, check the description. I'll have all of Colette's information down there.
Oh my gosh, having a tech guy is the best.
I'm telling you, he's awesome. It's so good because I'm telling you, when we show up and do what we're good at.
I love it. Yes, you know? I'm really good at that.
And he's really good at showing up and doing that. Shout out to Mustache Mike, bro.
Shout out to Mustache Mike.
Mysterious Mike now.
Well, now everybody knows he has a mustache.
Oh, we already know that.
That's
a big thing.
Okay, that's a thing.
That's a
He's
thing.
a mysterious man with a mustache.
I have a lot of names I've been called over the years. Mustache Mike, Missionary Mike.
Ooh.
A bunch of them. Man bun Mike.
Man bun Mike. I'm into it.
He's good.
Yes, this is so good.
So it's cool. It's really good. Like we can. Saucy was talking about on Friday, having a team to do everything that brings something is so important. It makes, I know what I'm good at. He knows what he's good at. And we kind of just structure and flow, and it's going really well so far. So
if it works, why fix it? I love it.
She's looking for somebody. So if we got to get somebody out here. She's in Atlanta right now, but I think we're going to be moving to Cali sometime. Shout out. We're putting it out there. God damn it.
Yes. Manifest that shit.
Hell yeah.
So Monday nights, that's it's a donation-based practice. You can just come and experience the practice and experience me, honestly, because this is such a new and kind of weird thing, if you will, right?
Yeah.
And so I think that there's some particular energy or gift that I hold that just helps people to feel safe as they explore something new. And so it's like, just come and listen to what I'm sharing,
Yeah.
I try to put myself on Instagram in a way that feels really natural, and that it's like, what you're getting, so even if you just look through my feed, you're going to kind of have a good sense of who I am. You come to the practice. So that's kind of the first way that I'm working with people generally.
Gotcha.
The next thing that I do is I do monthly workshops, and in the monthly workshops I dive into a lot more of the science, or the physiology, the neural, what's happening in the mind, what's happening in the emotions, what's happening in the energy body, and I start to teach how we can use this practice with intention to basically liberate stuck energy out of your body. Okay, so if you think about, and I'll just give a quick overview, but if you experience something that we would call trauma of some kind, whether that was in childhood or whether that was yesterday or whatever, the nervous system basically gives this flash of chemicals of energy, right? And that's how the fight or flight system comes online. We know oh shit, something's going on. We got to pay attention. But depending on what you've experienced in your life, the intensity of those flashes and the number of those flashes, right? So if you've experienced one or a few really big ones, or maybe many of them over the course of your life, we all have this, right? And the way that your body holds this, because the body is so much more wise than the mind, it basically gets lodged in the body as an energetic memory. And so there's these energetic memories of your trauma, essentially, and your conditioning and your upbringing and your emotional states and your thought loops, all that. It all exists first in the energy, and it's lodged in the body somewhere. And so what you can do with this practice is set your intention and then use your concentration, which is a mechanism that is a byproduct of a meditation practice, right? Is building your concentration ability. But we basically direct and focus our attention on one area of the body through these workshops with the intention of liberating any stuck energy that's in that area. So if we're going to focus on the root chakra, for example, which is the base of the spine, it's the perineum, it's the sexual organs, it's the very, very bottom part of the being. Well, that's that place where you're going to house any old fear or shame, any of that stuff, any kind of traumas that are associated with your physical safety are all going to be stored in that space. So if we set the intention, we consume cannabis, we bless the medicine, and then we focus our concentration on sending all of the energy into that space, what happens, and this is where the supernatural aspect of this practice comes into play, is that it literally will liberate energy out of that being, that part of your being. And in doing so, it might be uncomfortable, right? Because you might come face to face with all the fucking shame and fear and shit that's been stored in your root for your whole life. Yeah. It's gonna come to the surface. But if you allow it to come to the surface and you just allow it to move out of your being, whatever that looks like, sometimes I'm crying or shaking or thrashing around or moving my hands around or whatever the case is, if you just allow it to do what it's gonna do, then all of a sudden afterwards, you kind of ride this wave of intensity. On the other side of it, there's just space. There's just new space in your being that you didn't have before, right? So then you come back, and now we're going to focus on the solar plexus, which is the next energy center up. This is where your sexuality, your creativity, right? All that is housed in that place. So anything that's blocking you from expressing sensually or in your own sexuality, in your own knowing, your own identity, anything that's blocking your creative flow, your creative efforts, all of that, well, there's likely energetic memories kind of stuck around that space. So in these workshops that I do once a month, we're basically moving up the chakra system. Once I get through the chakra system, who knows where we'll go. But I'm just teaching people really more about the energetics, right? What's happening in the energy? How do we use energy to heal our bodies? Because right now we are all so focused on healing. How do we heal the mind? How do we heal the emotions? How do we heal the physical body? Well, everything starts as energy. So if you really heal, and when I say heal, it's really more if you align, if you purge and align the energy body, the byproduct is changed thoughts, is changed state of being, is a new expression in a way. And so this is just the potency and the power of the practice, right? So there's the Monday night workshop or the Monday night meditations. I have my monthly workshops. So once a month, it's usually on a Sunday afternoon, 3 hours. We do a meditation as well. So it's fun. The next level of kind of engagement, you could say, is I do cannabis meditation teacher trainings. And so I'm teaching other people how to hold cannabis meditations because my mission, if you will, is to get as many human beings meditating with cannabis as possible in this specific way. Now, I know a lot of people are already doing that in the sense that they'll smoke some weed and maybe they'll get into a meditative vibe. But really to have somebody guiding you through with intention is really potent. So my intention is to try to get as many people meditating on cannabis as possible. So I want to empower and educate other space holders, other people that feel called to the practice to start holding the space. So I do a teacher training every 2 months. It's a 3-day virtual process, and we go through all of it. And it is like a full-blown, I mean, honestly, it's like a spiritual overhaul in a way, right? It's a deep spiritual experience. It's really, really beautiful. And so then now I have a network essentially of healers, cannabis healers that are wanting to hold this space for other people. So, and then from there, I also work with people one-on-one. And so I'm an embodiment coach. I'm working with people, teaching them how to use cannabis for their own evolution. I work with women mostly just to support them on healing themselves, right? Gotcha. I believe that we are our own healer, right? I'm not healing another person. I don't claim ownership over someone else's healing ever. But what I can do is I can hold space for you and hold your hand and give you encouragement and give you reflection that will support you on finding your own healer within your being, right? Which to me is the source of healing itself, right? Yes. It's the creator, it's God, it's all those things. And so I find myself tiptoeing in and out of spiritual language because I don't want to freak people out, but I also kind of want to freak people out a little bit. Like, you got to know what you're getting into when you're coming into my little bubble, right? And my bubble it's spiritual. It's a lot of mystical, it's a lot of supernatural, it's a lot of energy, it's a lot of the creator. And so it's like, come and play. It's fun. It's a new space, a new way to experience yourself, right? Yes. Once you experience yourself as energy, right? Once you dissolve into the eternal sea of energy and you lose the boundary of the body and the mind and you're literally floating as energy, you can never go back to looking at yourself the same way. Same thing what you were just saying, like, I'm not my emotions. I'm not my mind. Yeah, you're also not the physical body. You're not connected to this plane the way that we think that we are. Yes. And so when you practice with cannabis in this way, you start to have these experiences, oh shit, I'm actually the energy of love shoved into this tiny human body, having this crazy experience, dealing with all of these energetic memories of conditioning and of trauma, and I'm expressing as a personality self that's actually still not authentically true in who I am. And so this practice helps us get rid of all that shit and just really embody who you truly are. You're the energy of love. You're the vastness of space. You are just experiencing yourself through me and every other human being on this plane. And life is actually beautiful, right? If we know how to see it.
I love that I gave myself a podcast. I'm like, yes.
I love it.
Yes, like all is amazing and beautiful and fuck, fuck. It's just like, goddamn right, goddamn. This is why we're here. Welcome to the Science Development Podcast. They're so blessed to have this and experience people like that. And speaking of that, when you do the internal work and you do the things you're talking about or whatever you want to call it, it seems that force starts to attract things outside of you also. And you get new friends, 100%. You get new opportunities, you get new, whatever the hell that you really want seems to start coming to you. Yes. Right? So then the flow, then it's like you're catching on. You've structured yourself in a way to be aligned with the source, to be aligned with the earth and everything around you. So then now all of a sudden you're on the flow. And once you're in the flow of life, all of a sudden all these things start to get attracted to you, and you're not fighting. I forgot, Alan Watts. I saw a quote, Alan Watts, is that a lot of people are fighting the flow of life and they're going against the current. And it's like you're going with the current regardless. Stop fighting it.
Right.
And when you start going with the current, when you swim in like with the current, you're going faster.
Yes.
You know, and then all these things, you start getting people, and then it starts getting easier, and then you start being reflection. Like, God damn it, I'm hanging out with Collette. Something's going fucking right. You know what I'm saying? Like, you know, all the people you start meeting, treating the last time, the crew, it's just like something's flowing, and little by little, the reflections that other people give you, the permissions, like, because, you know, you hold trauma. We all hold trauma. And we were talking about that yesterday about relationships at the deep end level or holding safe places for trauma. And as those things, as the spaces get held and you're able to express and be, it's like you become anew through those experiences. I'm not fucking only crazy, or I do have my little crazy, or whatever. That's my personality, though. That's my thing. Everyone has their things, but you feel accepted, you feel loved, and then boom, boom. It's just so I'm making noises in my hands, but you can't hear on the podcast, or you can't hear on the only audio. But it's a pyramid that starts to build, right? So it's awesome to hear all those things that you've done. And clearly your studying has freaking paid off. Like it has come into a lot of terms. I wanted to talk about Monday nights. And one thing that resonated, I felt like maybe a little bit more expression. When you say nesting, what does that look like? What is that for a person when you have the cannabis? Let's just talk about that a little bit, because you said you get the cannabis, you make your nest. Well, what is the nest? And then we'll go talk about the blessing of the cannabis and the intention. What is actually a nest when you say that?
Yeah. Well, I think it's up for interpretation.
Yes.
Right? And so ultimately you want to create a space that is intentional. That's really all that it is. So it can look like anything. I tell people not to meditate in their bed because they're probably going to fall asleep.
Yeah.
But it's like creating some space, whether that's in your bedroom or your living room or just someplace in your home, that just feels cozy. It feels really safe, right? You won't be disturbed. So if you have kids or you have a pet or you have a partner or a roommate or whatever, it's like, hey, I'm going to take my time and close this container, right? You want to think that even though we're doing this virtually, it would be no different than me and someone doing this in person, one-on-one. It's just like we're going to create this container that's really intentional. So I usually tell people to get something that's comfortable but not too comfortable so you fall asleep, right? So the ground is great, a pillow, a blanket, whatever. Definitely a blanket because you'll get cold. I advise an eye mask if that feels good. For some people, that's a little too overwhelming, and so you can always either start with the mask on, take it off, or whatever. And then listening in headphones is a game changer, right? And so I do advise putting headphones on. So all of this is part of the nest. And then creating whatever ambiance you want, right? Maybe you have some cool lights and a vibe. Maybe you have some candles or some incense or some sage or Palo Santo or like whatever. You want to bring your crystals. You want to get your sacred text. You want to do a ritual of some kind, like whatever, just whatever means sacredness to you, whatever means spiritual in the sense of I want to separate and delineate a practice that is its own thing, and I'm going to create an environment that is conducive to that thing. So let's say perhaps someday you're going in and my intention is to release emotion, right? Because you can just feel all day you've just been kind of fucking brimming with emotion and you're right here and it's like I felt like at any moment I could just start crying, like there's so many things coming at me. So you kind of are like, okay, I'm going to do a cannabis meditation. I'm probably going to cry. So then what does that look like, right? And so just like either telling your housemates or just creating a space where you're not going to be disturbed and you don't feel like you have to hold it in or make it weird or whatever, and just giving yourself the space to do and have whatever experience you're going to do and have. And that's kind of just what I was saying before, the difference between just like smoking a J with your friends versus setting an intention and consuming cannabis with intention, right?
Yes.
And so then when you have your love nest is just, what does it look like for you? What do you need to feel safe? What do you need to feel grounded? What do you need to feel present, really, and centered, right? Turn off the phone, turn off distractions, turn off all of that, and let's just come in and just ground. And just be. And I want to say that that's sacred. Like when we're talking about sacredness, like this is important to you. This thing or this pillow or this item or whatever it is, when you want to feel safe, sacred is like this is a place of my time. Yes.
Or I guess the best way is really important to you. That the highest value.
Right. I'm prioritizing it above all else. Therefore, it becomes sacred. And to me, I kind of live my life in this juxtaposition. It's like, well, if everything is sacred, then nothing is sacred.
Yes.
And I'm like, or Maybe everything is fucking sacred. Can we consider that for a second? Can we consider that every single waking moment of this existence is actually fucking sacred, and that you can have a connection to the Creator in a way that's so profound in every waking moment, whether you're setting a love nest and doing a cannabis meditation, or you're standing in line at the grocery store. You are in choice of how you perceive your life.
Decisive element.
Yes. And so for me, my choice is that I want to live my life in the sacred.
Yes.
I want every moment to feel and just like ordained by the Creator, right? I want it to be that powerful. And so, yes, setting
and why can't it be?
Why can't it be?
Why can't it be that powerful, right? We're the only ones determining if it can be or not be. I don't remember the goddamn quote, but I remember it's an Indian quote, a Native American quote, where every person is on top of their hill. God damn it, I wish I remembered that thing. But pretty much every space that you want, every spot that you step on is sacred, is the center of the universe for you. And that is sacred step. That is a sacred place. And for you, you can turn that into whatever you want to turn it into.
And it comes back to even the decisive element, I think, which is so important, which is that you're in choice.
Yes.
You're always in choice. And for me, someone who suffered with depression really badly, like chronic depression, debilitating anxiety, like I was a mess for a long time. And I honor and send so much love to that version of myself who was so deeply entrenched in her own suffering. And if future Collette would have gone to her and been like, oh, honey, you're in choice. You know, you're in choice with all that suffering. I probably would have punched myself in the face, right? Because that's not helpful to someone who's in their suffering. But the truth is that we are in choice. We just have to recognize where the choice lies and the ways upon which that we are being sucked into things, and we make it seem like we're out of choice. And I think that that's a really big part of taking ownership over your whole entire life.
Yes, right?
Everything, yes. And so it's the most liberating and the most fucking terrifying thing that you can do is actually take accountability for your own life.
Yes.
Because then now no one's going to come and rescue you, right? No one's going to come in and give you all of your wildest dreams.
Yep.
And also you have to be able to say, oh shit, okay, I see that pattern of behavior that's causing harm to me and others. I see that way of thinking that's not serving my highest good.
Yes.
I recognize that my nervous system lives in a state of fight or flight all the time, that I literally can never get myself to calm and to ground. I need to make some changes, right? Everything is a reflection back to yourself. But unfortunately, in this culture that we live in, if you say something that pisses me off, I'm going to point to you and say, I don't like you, Ronnie. I don't like what you said. Exactly. You did the thing. Instead of it being like, oh, why did what he just say trigger me so much?
Yes.
Oh, because there's an unhealed wound or something in here that believes what he said is actually true.
Yes.
And so then it's like, oh, that's where that defensiveness, that reactivity comes into play. So yeah, I think that as you go through any of this process of a healing journey of any kind, whatever you want to call it. I actually like to call it a remembering journey, because really you don't have to do anything to become who you want to be. You're already that. You don't have to become or strive or be enlightened or any of this shit. You literally just have to remember that, like, I'm not the culmination of my trauma. I'm not the culmination of the way my parents treated me or my ex-partner treated me. I'm not this thing. I'm not a sum of all of this shit that I've been through in my life.
They're stories.
Right.
They're stories that we hold on to. And I think, you know, at some level I've been having a little contemplation about this, because it's like, as a human being, stories help us in this plane. Is human experience, right? Like, they give us where we come from. They kind of give us a basics, the mind grasp on the story of us, the story of me, right? And it's like, okay, but also there's a bigger story. And we get so trapped on this story they hear, but there's a bigger story playing out. That just came to me right now.
Yes.
Right? There's a bigger story playing out, that I'm in this flow even bigger than what I think I am. And there's more things happening. So if we're all on this bigger story, then you're just a reflection for me.
Yes.
You're just here to help me on my journey. And that's why I always remember to remember.
Yes.
Always remember to remember that I'm on this journey. Have compassion and self-love for yourself, you know? And I think I was having another contemplation about the external and the internal, right? How you're talking about. Our culture kind of says it's your fault. And the book that I'm reading about The Path of Surrendering talked about how we always want to point outside, and we've actually think we have come conditioned that you need to express your feelings to somebody else. You really don't need to them, because like you said, you're triggering. It's all in me. So I don't really need to always express everything out if I know how to surrender in my own self. But it's also like the human, right? We are social creatures, so we don't want to feel like we're alone. And we're not alone. We're actually together, right? So we can have and share those experiences, but it's more of shared experiences in my self-ownership.
Yes.
I am feeling this way. It has nothing to do with you, but this is what I am experiencing. Let's have are you open to have a conversation about that? How do you experience that also?
Yes.
Right? So it's this internal, and what I've been learning is that whatever I feel that I'm learning with inside myself, I start to see it outside of myself. So a couple of weeks ago, I was like negative self-prophecies, right? Oh, how am I'm sealing self-prophecies. People are fulfilling their, and I want to say negative or deconstruction because it's not where they really want to go, right? Or is it really where they want to go because of the trauma?
Right.
Right? But because I started seeing and I started questioning, if I can see that outside, maybe that's a way that's whispering to me what's happening internally to me.
Right.
So how am I negative, non-productive, bringing things that I really don't want into my life. So the outside world is just literally a reflection of what's happening internally in me. So as I go back in, I journal, I think about it, I express it with the lady, with my friends, and then we all see, and it all kind of forms little by little to get there.
And it's interesting because I think the process is that you will lose some people on the journey that were aligned to you in your suffering.
Yes.
Right? Because we're either trauma bonding or we're creating relationships based on mutual suffering, right?
Yes.
So we resonate together because we both experienced this thing, whether we experienced it together or we experienced a similar thing in childhood or whatever, right? And so as you go on this journey of remembering that you're not your story, you're not the narrative, you're not all these things, you're not the mind, you're not the emotions, you're so much more than all of that, then there is a period of time when people that are not in resonance with you fall away. And there's a period of it feels like isolation and solitude in a sense as you're reestablishing your new sense of identity, your new sense of self. You're creating new boundaries on what is friendship to me, what is partnership to me, how do I expect people to show up for me, how do I show up for others, how do I communicate my needs in a way that's really productive instead of just pointing the finger and saying that you're triggering the shit out of me.
Yes.
Right? And then as you continue on your remembering journey, then all of a sudden what you were just describing before, where now all of a sudden people just show up or opportunities just show up. You get a phone call out of the blue, like, I want you to do this thing, come be on my podcast, come do this thing. And all of a sudden I'm in flow, right? And so the way that I visualize with the analogy you gave is that when we're unconscious, if you will, I'm using air quotes for those that can't, if you're not aware yet of your own suffering, you're just kind of in that space. You're in the human, right?
People, you're sleeping, like you're in the matrix.
Right, you're just in it. You're actually swimming against the current, right? You're just, I'm just, just exhausted and swimming. So then you have the switch where you realize like, oh, I could swim this way and it would be so much easier. So then now I'm swimming this way and look at how fast I'm going. And oh my God, I'm doing all the things, right? And that's still good, but we're still striving for performance. We're still striving for enlightenment, if you will. We're still striving. So then ultimately what we want to do is let our friend throw us a little noodle and just put that up underneath our arms and then just be floating in the current, right?
Dun, dun, dun.
I'm not trying to be swimming nowhere. I don't like cardio.
Yeah.
You just got to go with it.
Yeah. Such a good word.
Right? And so,
you hit me right there, girl, because I feel like that's where I'll be at sometimes, man. Because I still I find myself sticking in the do. And it's like, okay, I've turned direction now.
Right.
The doing happens without me forcing myself to do it.
Right. And sorry, go ahead.
Okay, well, that's what the book talks about, flowing. It's like, and I guess when this book came to me, because it's so perfectly, I found, so I'm in the stocks, right? I'm learning the stock market, and I went through one dude, he was a younger dude, and he was great, taught us lessons and whatnot, but I really found out that I found him to find this guy, John Carter. And I'm listening to his stock market stuff, and then he brings out this book, and he talks about mindful, like enhancing focus music while he's trading. I'm like, this is who I've been looking for, like a mentor in some way to get that. And it's even if it's digital, whatever, a mentor comes in a lot of different ways now. And the book talked about, and I guess I realized that it's a fear. It was a belief that I held that if I don't work hard, things won't come.
Yes.
And if I don't focus on things, they won't manifest. And it's like, okay, but something internally me is pulling to do it anyways. So why am I pushing more, like you're saying, swimming downstream when it's already happening?
Right.
And all I'm really doing is hurting my body.
Right. You're just going to burn out.
Yeah. I'm hurting my body. I get too obsessed. And, you know, I saw this quote up, and it's kind of what you're talking about, and about being lonely for a little bit, right? Obsession is loneliness at some level. And at those moments, we have to be able to just like, it's okay to be lonely.
It's okay.
You know, it's okay if I feel this way. You know, and for me, in my reflection, I think I grew up because of my abandonment issues with father. I wanted to be with people all the time.
Yes.
You know, and as I've gotten more comfortable with myself, it's like, okay, I really don't, if I don't feel this vibe right now, that's okay. Yes. There's nothing wrong with me. There's nothing wrong with them.
Right.
And just let the things flow.
Yes.
And as I found it comes out better.
Yes.
You know,
yes.
I really love that analogy. I really need that piece of golden nugget. Because it's like, and you said, the friend tosses you that, and that's the whole point. We're not alone.
We're not alone, right?
We're not alone.
And there's a difference between solitude and loneliness, right? And so there's prioritizing one's solitude gives us an ability to really tap into our own energy space, right? And like, honestly, whether you're aware of it or not, we as human beings, we speak in energy way before we speak in English or whatever language that you choose, right? Because energy carries its own language, but most people don't know the language, and so they're kind of being blindly led by the energy system or the nervous system, basically, as they're like going through this life and they don't really understand what it is. And for me, being in the whatever world that I'm in, I kind of straddle a lot of different worlds, but what I see or hear talk to about is a lot of like the healing journey, spirituality stuff, and plant medicine. Those are, and like coaching, self-development stuff, right? So these are kind of the little bubbles that I keep my energy in. And I think that we have now applied this same productivity mindset that our culture puts on a pedestal, right? We idolize productivity. We idolize how much work you do, how many hours a week you do it, how much money you make, how much, like this is how we gauge success, right? And so now I'm seeing people applying that same mentality to their healing journey. And it's like, how does that make any fucking sense? It doesn't make any sense. You cannot gauge this journey using this barometer of success that we use in our culture that has got us into the mess that we have found ourselves in culturally right now as we speak, you know? And so learning a new way of approaching yourself is the most sacred aspect of this journey. To understand that to heal your body, to heal your mind, to heal your relationship to yourself, it is all rooted in just the remembering, and it's in gentleness. Like you cannot heal without gentleness. It's like your partner breaking their leg and you being like, come on, get your shit together. Heal your leg already. What are you doing? And it's like, no, when you're truly, truly healing yourself, you are the one who's healing and caring for yourself all at the same time. There's a caregiver within the mind. And so when shame from childhood comes up, or shame around sexuality comes up, or fear of abandonment, or fear of whatever, or feelings of unworthiness, or fear of humiliation, like whatever that deep, deep, deep wound is, when that comes up for you, how do you comfort yourself? How do you step in as your own nurturer, right? Yeah, maybe you didn't have a dad that showed you how to comfort the masculine within yourself, right? Okay, well, fucking figure it out. How do you need it? What do you need to feel safe? How do I make myself feel safe and seen and loved? Because once I start changing the dialogue within my own brain of how I talk to myself, then everybody around will start to also change the way that they talk to me as well. And that's just going back to the reflections, right? We're all just the reflection of the self. Once you see yourself in one reflection, you can't not see yourself in every reflection. And that's the beautiful part of it. And then once you see yourself, then you see the creator, and then you really start to understand this idea of unity consciousness, and that we are all exactly the same. We are the same energy in these different vehicles, these different vessels, these different bodies, but the energy is the same. And this is why cannabis meditation is so fucking profound.
Hell yeah.
Because it shows people that in a way that their mind can understand, you know?
I can't wait.
And it's really, and like even okay, go ahead.
Oh, you know, one thing that it made me think about, because I think the last podcast or what I did with Mike, I talked about management and leadership. And it's kind of what I felt you say. It's like productivity is managing. Do this to get this. A gets you to Z, 1 gets you to 10, and do all those things, and doing quicker, doing faster, and you make more money, you get more prestige and all these things. On the other side, it's like you're leading yourself home. Because a leadership gives you purpose, direction, and motivation. right? And those things actually, if you're leading yourself, if you're finding your motivation and you're giving yourself purpose and, and compassion to heal, your purpose and what this healing is a purpose. It's not about getting you to 1 to 10 in 10 days.
Right.
It's about, no, I got to actually get this shit out of me. So a leader is actually the one who gets into you and pulls you and there to lead you.
Yes.
So you're really leading yourself.
I love it.
Right. So we got to stop managing our goddamn selves.
Yeah.
And that, I'm telling you, that's fucking one thing that I do good with myself, and I'm learning how to let that shit go, Right. But I think it's so important. And now I want to get to the sacred part, right? The blessings.
Yes.
Because, we have fruit here, we eat, we drink water, whatever type of medicine you take, how does someone bless or really enjoy what they're doing? So in this sense, the cannabis, like the intention of what this plant is going to do, or at least help assist you in what you're trying to accomplish with your intention.
Yes. So this is why cannabis is, I love this plant so much. But basically, cannabis is wise, right? It is a living entity. And so it carries its own energetic signature, if you will, right? It carries its own intention. And so I believe that the plant is here for us to help us serve humanity, to serve our evolution, to serve our healing, to serve our embodiment, right? And so if you know how to tap into that, you know how to do that. The analogy that I like to give, which is interesting because even though the practice is very spiritual, it's very sacred and all those things, I'm also very mindful that we are, as a culture, deconstructing a lot of our religion and our religious beliefs. And so I intentionally use language to help people approach this practice in a way that they can create it for themselves. Like, I'll show you how I do it, but you can copy it word for word if you want. Or here's how I do it, and now you go create something yourself. So I'm not trying to teach anybody how to do or have or facilitate a spiritual thing in the sense that I want people to do it like I do.
Yes.
Does that make sense? Like, I want to
You're
empower
giving structure,
you. Right.
But you put your flavor on it.
Yes.
It's just that this is how I figured it out. It works. But do your flavor.
You, right?
Yeah.
So like, I love crystals, but this is a great example. I love crystals. I think they're beautiful. I think they're amazing. But like, I don't worship the crystals don't really do a whole lot for me in the sense, I just think they're really cool pieces of earth, right?
Yes.
And so they represent really beautiful earth energy to me.
Yes.
But I know that some people are really deeply entrenched in the sacredness of the crystal, the same way that I'm entrenched in the sacredness of the cannabis, right? So if you want to do some type of ceremony that includes your crystals, then it's like, do that, right? Just because I don't necessarily do, that doesn't matter. Like, the beauty of this is every journey back to the creator is unique based on the person.
We had this conversation at Saucy's house, that everyone's into something.
Yes.
It don't matter what it is. I have friends who are like, they're obsessed. They have horses.
Yes.
And it goes deep. Right? They're like, this type of horse does this. Pokemon cards is another thing, right? I stocks for Bitcoin, like all these different things. People get a thing. It's like a thing that we get into. And how can you express that in what you're saying?
And so what you can, like, the way that I look at it is that you can bring the creator into anything that you do. So if you trade on the stock market, and that's a sacred experience for you, if you set the intention before you sit down at the computer to invite the creator into that experience, it's going to be totally different.
My whole stock experience changed.
Yes.
That's it.
Yes. It's so good. If you knit socks and in your knitting, you find some connection to creative energy, that's the creator. So it's like, bring that. It doesn't matter what you're doing. It's just setting the intention. So the blessing, the analogy that I give when I'm explaining this is like, have you ever seen the science experiment where there's 2 jugs of water, and one jug of water, they speak nice words to it, they love it, they say all the good things. The other jug of water, they're just like mean, just like hateful to the water, right?
That's crazy.
Then they pour it into 2 identical plants, right, in the same environment, and then the plant with the love water grows all beautiful and big, and the plant with the mean water doesn't grow.
Yes.
Okay, so this is how our intention informs our experience, right? And so when I come to cannabis meditation, whether I'm doing it for myself, I'm holding space for a group, or for one person, basically my intention is energetically holding and containing that container, basically, right? And so when you sit down and you hold this, whatever, your joint, your bong, your bowl, whatever, however you're going to consume, it doesn't matter. But you recognize that this living plant, which has its own energy, which has its own intelligence, you're going to consume this plant and commune with it in your being, right? If I send my intention into that plant, then it's going to essentially carry that message or that intention into the body.
Yes.
This is the way that I understand it, is that the cannabis is kind of the vehicle that brings the intention to the nervous system.
Well, you explained it perfectly with the water analogy.
Yes.
And this is like scientifically proven.
Yes.
And they've done it for multiple times.
Yes.
Even talking to the plant and giving that like negative energy changes the structure of the plant.
Yes.
Yeah.
And this is the same concept behind blessing your food, right?
Exactly.
But because we're still in this deconstructing of religion phase, I want to use examples and analogies that feel really understandable and approachable for people, right?
Perfect.
And so I think that when you set the intention, regardless of what the intention is, and then for me, again, blessing the plant or blessing the medicine that you're going to consume is bringing the creator into the experience.
Yeah.
It's saying, I want something greater than myself in this knowing. I want something bigger than just me sitting on the couch smoking a joint by myself, right? And so, and then in addition to that, so now we have the intention behind why you're doing it this way. What is your intention? I need clarity on something. I'm seeking an emotional purge. I want insight on a new thing. I want to surrender this old, like whatever the intention is, it doesn't matter. I just want to have an experience. That's great. I just want to relax. Like, these are all great intentions. But informing the cannabis then informs the nervous system, which supports the body in doing what the body already knows how to do, which is heal itself.
Yes.
The body knows what to do. You just have to allow it to happen. So there's blessing the medicine, that's setting the intention, right? It's sitting down, it's inviting the creator in. But then also for me, it's a spiritual protection, right? So I'm offering a blessing over the medicine. I'm praying, I'm inviting the creator into that space, but I'm also setting a protective sort of energetic vibe spiritually, knowing that this is a spiritual practice, right? We're going to go into a spiritual realm. People are going to drop into kind of the subconscious mind, which gives an opening in a sense, right? And so I bless the container and I invite, the language that I choose is my angel armies, my spirit guides, my protectors, my spirit animals, like whatever, and the consciousness of the Christ. I bring that into my container as energetic kind of protectors, I guess you could say, right? And so all of these things shape the intention of the fact that I'm consuming cannabis for a different thing now, right? So again, like it's delineating, this is not me just like smoking a joint with my friends. Now I use that as an example. If you were to bless the medicine before you sit down and smoke a joint with your friends, that conversation is going to be way different, right? Because the energy of the cannabis that you've now put into your body is informed, right? So that's the fun of this, is that you can start to explore the sacredness in every moment. You can explore the sacred potential in cannabis in anything that you're doing. You're going on a hike. Well, bless the medicine first and see what happens. Just start doing that. What would happen? Just explore it. Even if you're skeptical or you're like, I don't know, this sounds a little woo-woo, like Colette's a little bit off the rocker a little bit. It's like, what do you have to lose?
Yeah. I've even thought about doing that. So as starting a business meeting.
Yes, 100%.
Right. Like, let's do a breathing exercise very quick. Let's get tapped in.
Yes.
We're here at this moment. If we need to have a conversation, if you need to have a conversation about whatever's going throughout your day, let's have these conversations before we get into the creative process.
It's so good.
Yeah.
Because all that is just sitting on you like dust.
Yes.
Anyways. And so when you come into a space or you're co-collaborating in some way, everyone's carrying whatever they just dealt with on their way here. So it's like giving a second to just like reground and center before moving forward. Like, to me, this is the future of co-creation with humans in co-collaborating. Like, we have to understand the energies of everything and the ways that our energies are impacted and influenced by one another. And so whenever we're setting an intention of any kind, whether it's to bless the cannabis before you consume it, or it's to do some breath work before your meeting starts, right? Like, that's the future of where we're heading.
I think so.
Because we, as a species, we can't continue to evolve, to live in the way that we are, which is just with burnt out brains, just like frazzled with a fried nervous system that's just living in fight or flight all the time. It's just not serving. It's not helping us.
I went to this men's retreat, Sacred Sons, and the guy said, not enough of it mindfulness. Your mind's full. We got to empty your mind. Embodiment. In the body is where you want it to actually happen. And Dr. Joe Spencer talks about it a lot, right? Because it's like your habits are actually use the mind to focus to get what it needs to get done, and then make that a habit, or embodiment is a better word, because then now you're doing it naturally. Right? Naturally comes from doing it over consistently. And one thing I came up in the leadership course that I'm in right now, uncomfortability needs effort. Effort needs time, and reps leads to confidence and comfortability. So everything you do, it might seem scary at first, right? Like this podcast. I've been so structured in the military for so long and doing this, that this creative process is an edge for me.
Yes.
Right. So, so I understand that. And the stocks, all these new things. I feel like a puppy right now doing shit that I'm right. Like, but I've mastered other things before. So, remember, I need to put effort, which is the mind to focus. Effort here needs reps consistently, which brings me the outcome that I will hopefully eventually get to and what I want.
And the beautiful part is that you're always in choice, going back to that.
Exactly.
In how much you want to level up, we'll say.
Exactly.
Right? And so for me, it's like every time I get to the point that I'm like, okay, fuck, I just figured this level out. We're good.
Yeah.
I'm not uncomfortable doing a podcast anymore. I don't feel freaked out about posting videos of myself on Instagram. I don't, okay, cool, I'm making progress. Well, then we're always invited to stay right where you are. Are you comfortable? Yeah. Cool. Stay here if you want.
Yeah.
You got a little money coming in, you're doing the things, but there's always an opportunity to level up or to go to the next stage or the next phase or whatever the case is. And to me, the mercy of the creator is all like, you're always in choice. You will be honored and blessed. I don't even like the word blessed in that way because I feel like we've misconstrued it as like as a reward, right? And I don't mean it that way. Yeah. But you will be supported by
just you alive means you're supported.
Exactly.
You don't have to do anything to be blessed.
Right.
You are this thing.
You are blessed.
Yes.
But it's like you can stay on the level of comfortability that you're on forever if you want.
Yes.
But the opportunity is always to level up. And the number of levels are infinite.
Yes.
But each level requires a greater source, like a greater experience of discomfort, right? Because every time we get bigger or energetically more powerful, we have to hold this new energy that feels uncomfortable, exactly like what you're saying, until we get in after repetitions, and then now I'm comfortable with it. Well, then you're literally, as soon as you're comfortable with it, the opportunity is, okay, you're going to stay or you're going to go again.
Yep.
And it's just like, all right, am I going to get off the roller coaster and just chill and get an ice cream and just like do the things, or am I going another round?
Yes.
Right? And it's like, for me, now that I've done this enough times, and I'm like, well, where's the roof then?
Yeah, that's how I feel. I'm always like this. I feel like I get to the top, I master it, I chill for a little bit because I'm not sure I mastered it, and then I find out, I did master this. Oh, I'm getting bored. Time for the next thing.
Yes, 100%.
Right? Yeah.
And that's the fun of it. And then it's like, okay, well then if I'm the energy of love, right? If the creator exists inside of me and is manifesting in and through me the same way it's manifesting in and through every other human being, then what is impossible for me? Like there's nothing, right? And so then it's like, well, what do you want to do with your life? Well, that question creates intimidation because now we're getting back to you have to be accountable to your own fucking life.
Yes.
What do you actually want to do?
Yes.
Oh, I want to start a movement in cannabis. Yes. I want to create some type of spiritual revival of some kind using cannabis. I want to educate people on how to heal themselves of their own trauma, of their own things, of like whatever they've been through. I want to support and create a community and do all these things. Well, then it's like, well, what's after that? Well, I don't know.
We'll find out.
We'll find out.
Like
there's retreats coming. There's this coming. There's there's all different things and ways, like conferences. I've had visions of big stages with lots of people in a room doing meditations together and having like thousands of people having a spiritual experience at the same time. Yes. So I'm like, I don't know when that's coming, but like, I'm on it. I'm here for it, right?
I'm going to have a big stage concert. Yes. It's going to be speaking, but music. Like I've had the same type of shit. Yeah.
And so you are in choice, and you either believe the vision that you've seen, or you are too afraid of it, or you think you're unworthy of it, or you think you're incapable of it, or whatever the case is.
And there's the work.
And this is the work. Whatever is standing in between you and you fulfilling the greatest dream destiny of your life, there's your work.
Yeah. Yesterday, the UFC fight, Thug Rose won, right? And she knocked her out. And Joe Rogan talked about her next to her while she was in. Before the even fight started, she's telling herself, I am the best. Yeah. I am the best. I am the best. We have to put that in us because so much of our conditioning so far, and I don't want to say culture, I don't want to put the blame outside, but we are learning creatures. And we have to take responsibility and recognize, and that's the whole, like, I guess the premise of the podcast is that individual reflects the collective. Yes. Right? And then the collective will reflect the individual, which is in turn what we become.
Right.
So if we change this at an individual level, the reflection of the collective changes. So hopefully our kids, our grandkids don't have to go through the same levels to get to where they need to go. Because instead of starting at level 1, they're at level 5 started off, and then they can start off at level 10. But now level 5 is their 1. Right. But they're not even aware of that. Right. You know, so it's like we have to embody this in everything we do. Right. Go back to the crew, like as we meet more people and it comes to us, that is starting the collective thing that is moving. Yes. You know, and this, this cannabis move, I posted on Instagram that I remember Mexico just legalized it, right? So now we have Canada and we have Mexico. United States in the middle, we still haven't legalized it, right? On federal level. So I see, and I'm in the military, so I can't smoke all the time, right? When I've done the cannabis ones with you or the meditations, I've just been there laying while the other ones smoked around me and still gone through it. I've done Sermonic Breathing with Anahata from shout out to Anahata from Sedona, right? And I had a profound experience just fucking breathing. Deeply breathing, over oxygenizing my body and going there. Wim Hof has a bunch of things on there, right? What over oxygenizing your body does to your cells and helps the immune system and all those different things. But what I'm getting to is that how do you think this legalization in the United States is going to help shift the culture within? Because I think if I'm honest, I feel they're just chasing the money.
100%.
But from what I hear and from what I experience with my other types of breathing and different things, this is more than just the money. This is going to have a very big cultural shift. And what do you see happening with that?
Well, my hope in happening with that is that as legal reform continues to happen, that more people will come to cannabis with intention, right? To me, the benefit of the differences of, like, you know, for me, I've been smoking weed since I was 17 years old, right? So like, just you figure out how you find weed. This was back before it was legal anywhere, right? And so you just get little Ziploc sandwich baggies with like some dust at the bottom, right?
That was just a nightmare. Kids don't know.
They don't know. They're so spoiled. When people are like,
they have it like in a tube, like a perfectly rolled joint. It's like, dude, you gotta like Google how to freaking roll a joint. When I was a kid, oh my god, it was a nightmare.
Oh, it's the worst. And I feel like it's so funny because people ask me all the time, what's the best strain for meditation? And I'm like, honestly, my endocannabinoid system was developed back in like the 2000, early, where I didn't have all these different strain options. I just smoke weed.
I just smoke
like
the shit.
Just weed. I don't know.
And then when you go to pick up weed, the guy's always like, "Dude, this is the best stuff I've ever had." And he doesn't know what it is. But then like how can you have the best stuff every single time I come here?
Right.
Do you literally, your weed is getting better every single time I come over here?
No, he's just a good marketer, right? He just knows what to say. Okay, so getting back to the legalization conversation. So I think that, sorry, I got off track for a second.
Good.
I came to this plant when I was a teenager, and then I have been smoking weed. A lot of that was unconscious, just like, let's get fucked up, let's smoke some weed, let's do the thing, right, whatever. And so once I recognized that my consumption was unconscious and causing harm, then I started to reframe my relationship to cannabis. I started using it more intentionally, even in the sense that it was like, actually, I'm not going to smoke before I go to that party because I actually don't do well in really crowded environments when I'm high, right? It makes me anxious or paranoid or whatever. It's too much energy. So like even that type of reframing and then just sticking to it, just choosing like, no, I don't need to smoke right now because I know it's not going to serve me. I'm going to have an unpleasant experience, right? And then I discovered the sacred potential and all the spiritual stuff that comes with it. And so when I look at our country as a whole, is that most people that still don't consume cannabis if they're living in an illegal market, or like in a regulated state still, is because they're like law-abiding, respectable adult humans that are not going to break the law.
She got quotations.
I got air quotes, right? This is the demographic of a lot of people where it's like they're not opposed to it, but they're not going to do it illegally. And so my hope is for those quote-unquote air quote respectable adult human beings that are just choosing to follow the law versus being morally opposed to the consumption of cannabis, is that when cannabis becomes legal and they are like, maybe I'm ready to try this thing, that they have some people out there like me that's saying, hey, try it this way, right? Let's break the stigma that all people that smoke weed are just in a dark, hazy room with a bunch of people and heavy eyes and eating chips and just like fucking smoking weed, right? Like, let's start having new, intelligent conversations about spirituality, about not only mindfulness, but like what's happening neurologically in the brain. What is the brain actually doing when you're having these types of experiences? Let's talk about the nervous system. Let's really tap into what's going on in the body and really come back into that embodiment, what you were talking about before. Use the practice, use the plant to sink into the body, to like feel into the body. What's going on in there? What is the body trying to say to you, but you're too in the brain to actually hear what the body has to say. So my hope is that as legal reform happens and these, you know, respectable humans that are choosing to not engage with cannabis because of its illegality will come, but they'll bring their respectable humanness to it, and they'll want to try it in a way that feels safe to them. And does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes perfect sense.
And so my hope is that when you sit with any the beautiful part about cannabis is that if you consume with any form of intention, it's serving you. Even when you're consuming unconsciously to some degree, it's still serving you. And that's the beauty of it. Like, healing doesn't always have to hurt. Healing can feel good. Healing can be laughing your ass off because you're super high. Like, all of these things are good and it's allowed. And so my hope is that as the country gets on board with cannabis and gets on board with the benefit of the plant, not only from the economic standpoint of supporting our country to get out of debt or to accumulate whatever, but
hopefully hemp too.
Right. Yeah. Yes, the hemp, and that's a whole other conversation.
Yeah, it's a whole other,
But then even just to remark on the people that are still in prison for this plant, like it's just disgusting. It's honestly disgusting. And so, you know, a part of my work that I'm in the process right now is really seeking out where does my advocacy lie? And I think there's so many different ways and advocacies that you could get involved in within cannabis and the connection. And to me, what lands for me is just like, people should not be in jail for this. This is awful, right?
Yes.
And so just reaching out and supporting organizations that are doing good things to help right so many of the wrongs that have been done through the cultivation and consumption of this plant, through the war on drugs, through the cultural conditioning, and through the stigmas and all of these things, is that we are reshaping all of that simultaneously.
Yes.
And that's where there's a responsibility that comes into play. Like, I recognize there is a responsibility in speaking about cannabis in any way, shape, or form.
Yes.
If you're going to advocate for the plant, you have to advocate for righting the wrongs that have been done in this country around this particular plant.
And in a way, that's what you do internally.
Yes,
right.
Exactly.
You do that internally. You own your shit, and then you got to go back and deal with all the other stuff and righting the wrong. So like when you lie to somebody, righting the wrong is telling them and expressing that and having those things come up. So that is part, once again, the internal reflects in the external.
Yes.
You know, so I think it's beautiful that that's just the way it goes.
Yeah, so
man.
my hope is that this reform is met with a massive healing, right?
Yes,
that
I'm hoping
people
so
are,
too.
I've had visions of people, like, it's so crazy to even describe visions sometimes because, well, just because it's weird, right?
Yeah.
But I've had visions of, like, thousands of people in their living rooms having like full-blown spiritual experiences, right? And so it's
they won't even know, like they don't. They'll just smoke and they'll be like chilling, and then boom,
right? It's so fun. And then I'll get an email, like if they're doing a meditation with me, for example. But I'll get an email from people the next day, and they're like, "What the fuck?" And I'm like, "Oh yeah, hi, yes, you did it, you did the thing, right?" And so it's interesting, and I think that the practice kind of takes people off guard. They're kind of surprised by the potency of when you are perfectly still and present with how you feel when you consume cannabis versus just being social.
Yes.
And so that being taken off guard is what really launches people into a deeply profound experience. And then the beautiful part of that is that when they come back to the practice, they can't really drop in fully sometimes because the mind is too active or like wanting to recreate that experience or is intimidated by that experience or whatever the case is. And so that's really the clear jumping off point to what is going on internally with you. And so when you use this practice with intention, you will meet yourself.
Yes.
100%.
And that's why the mentor is so important.
Yes.
The guider.
Right. And this is also like why I'm building a community around this work, because it's like this is unprecedented, right?
Yes.
To use this practice in this way has never been done before. And so the community helps us get clear reflections back and ask questions. Like Wednesday nights I do a Clubhouse call where anyone can pop on and either ask questions or share their experience, or if people aren't really talkative, then I'll find myself just kind of flowing and talking through whatever wants to come out. But it's just such a good opportunity for people to get a reflection of like, what are other people experiencing in this practice?
I've been thinking about starting that too.
Yeah.
A Clubhouse about the decisive element and what they're talking about.
It's cool. Yeah. It's cool. It's a good place for people to just be able to be heard and to ask questions and to get clarity and to build that community that's
and be
different
involved.
than what,
it's more involved. Like this is just me and you talking.
Yes.
That way it's like, what questions you got now? What's happening? What's going through your life? And you can just be a reflection in that moment.
And then for me, my journey through cannabis meditation is so different than somebody who has come to my platform and is on their own journey. And so it gives an opportunity for people in my community to speak up and mentor for new people that are coming in, because their experience is so different than what mine has been. And I'm always happy to share, but it's always like, I don't need to be the one talking all the time.
Yes.
And so like I did a Clubhouse the other day, and one of the women that's in my community was speaking to and answering questions and pouring into somebody that was new to the practice and just encouraging them. And I was like, fuck, this is so beautiful.
This is it.
This is it. I don't have to do anything. I just have to get my little floaty on and just keep doing what, and that's the kind of the, coming back to that co-creation and that effort that you have to put in, right?
Yes.
I'm going to keep showing up on Mondays.
Yep.
I'm going to keep creating more content and more things for people to engage with.
Yes.
But ultimately, I'm just going to be chilling, you know? And I know that I could be running at a much higher rate right now with what I'm creating, with where the future of this platform is going, with all the things. I know that I could hire a podcast people and I could do, and I could get, but I'm also just like, yeah, but I'm good.
Yes.
I know all that's coming.
Yeah.
You know, and I want to enjoy the sweetness of this moment
Once
right
again,
now.
you're on the floaty.
Yeah, I'm just floating right now.
You're floating.
And there might be a time when I need to swim a little bit, but then I'll keep my floaty close by because I just like to be chilling.
That analogy's like worked so much throughout
It
this
does.
podcast.
That's
Your analogies have been on point.
you.
Hell yeah.
Yes.
Every single one, I'm like, I get it 100%.
I think analogies really work in my brain,
yeah.
and so they really. I use analogies a lot when I'm teaching, especially because what I'm teaching about energy, unless you have like deep dove into studying energy,
Or
you're
experiencing it before.
Yes.
Yeah.
You're not really going to get it, you know,
Yes.
until you get it. And
And
then
that-
once you get it, you can't unget it.
And that's like you said about the wording on what you use. Like it's spelling is spells, right? So it's like how you say things is going to, I don't want to say infiltrate, but be invited.
Yes.
Be invited by the
100%,
person.
yes.
Because if they hear specific words that trigger them, it's going to get hit by
They
a
just
wall
close,
and
right?
then it's not going to be
Right.
there. So how can you open up a space to allow people to listen to what's being said?
And that,
Right.
so at my Monday night meditations, I always give kind of the shame spiel, like my opening thing.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I say all the time is that like, this is a deeply spiritual practice for me. And so regardless of how you come to the practice, like I'm inviting you into this space. And so when I guide this meditation, I'm dropping way in myself, right? And so this isn't just, I'm just like sitting around like, okay, take a deep breath in, you know, just like, that's not how I guide meditation, right? I'm just like, you know, I do weird things with my face and my body's doing, weird, you know, and it gets weird. And so it's like I set the precedent that you're coming into my sacred space.
Yes.
So however you choose to engage is fine. And you have to know that it's likely that I might say something that's going to trigger you, right? Especially if you're in a deconstruction season of your life, especially if you have anger or resentment towards this entity, the creator, God, whatever you want to say. Like if you already carry some of that emotional weight in some way, then it is almost guaranteed that I'm going to trigger you in some way. And so I say that and also say, I hope that you can look past the words, because we use the word God or creator or source or spirit or the energy of love or whatever to describe this vibration, this frequency that literally cannot be described in any word at all. Not one word could ever do the trick. And I intentionally intermix all of these different words that I hear people using so that we can start to understand our approach and understanding of this thing. And also, me personally, as Collette, the human on this plane doing this work, I feel called to rub up against the word God tension. Does that make sense? The tension around the word specifically God. Okay.
Now, hold on. When you say rub against the tension, meaning that you're trying to deconstruct, or you're trying to bring new to it, or like what does this actually mean?
Yes. So to me, it means like whatever you believe about the word.
Yeah,
God,
that's what I meant. Like
right?
you're trying to really,
I want to
you
rub
want
up
to get
against
into that. Like,
so if I say the word God and you instantly shut, what's that?
Yes.
Where does that come from?
Yes.
Right? And then is that actually you?
Yes.
Or is this you are shut to this word because of a person in your life? Are you shut to this word because you were raised in the church and you find it hypocritical? Are you shut to this word because you have a wound or an issue with your own father, right?
Yes.
Like why are you triggered by the word God? And let's unpack that.
Yes.
Right? And because God is just a word, but it is a word that is supposed to encompass an energy that cannot be held in one word.
Exactly.
And so I say that in my meditation where it's like, if I say something that doesn't resonate with you energetically or spiritually, can you still hear the truth behind the word itself? right? And so if I say the word God and there's a part of you that doesn't like the word God, but can you allow that part of you to be quiet or soften so that you might receive new information about this old thing that you think that you know based on whatever it is that you were brought up or taught or experienced in your life. Because ultimately, if we are all the manifestation of the Creator, right? If all of us are the extension of the same energy, then your relationship to the word, God, is a part of your narrative. It's a part of your conditioning.
I read this book called The Right Use of Will. And the whole I don't want the whole narrative, I don't want to say the whole narrative, but what I received from from that book was that your spirit is part of God, right? Or creation, creation, whatever you want to call it. You're part of this life force, right? When you detach from life force is the life you don't really want.
Right.
Your spirit, your soul is part of that life force. And actually your spirit and your soul is what's needed here on earth. So, and when you start doing those things that your spirit and your soul really wants to do, you actually feel more joy. You're happier because that is expression of God, life force that wants to come out. And that's actually when you're connected. And that's actually, I don't want to say, that's what I'm seeking. I don't want to say I don't want to project it, but that's what I'm seeking. Same. And because I'm seeking it and you're seeking it, I feel and I know that I am a reflection of the collective, then that's what we're really all seeking. Right. So we all want to be connected and we all want to be our best. So let's surrender to that and, like you said, rub against that stuff, because we got to understand, God made me do this. I've done this. All these different things happen in the name of God. But that comes to back the freedom of choice that a human being has. And some people, unfortunately, I guess we all have. I have chosen to not take that path at times. Right. I woke up and yelled at my kids, or I chose to do those things. I chose to hold on to that trauma. I chose to be depressed at some level. Life can happen, We just recorded our intro video, and that was one thing. My brother passing away, I realized that I held on to that grief or unfairness. On the last podcast with Tree, I wrote a poem and about unfair. I live in an unfair, unseen game, and that really stemmed from, I think, my brother dying, being upset with God. Like, how dare you take my brother when I see everybody else not appreciating their brother? Yes. But then on the flip side, the only reason why I know that is because he's gone. So would I even appreciate other siblings because he's here? Right. And it's just like, I just want to share that with people. Appreciate your siblings, man, because those motherfuckers are not guaranteed, just like everybody else, But it's like unfair, unseen game. And I had to unpack that with myself, because how can I be connected with creation and spirit? And when I want to create, if I feel like God's unfair to me. Right. And that is just like, it's a projection. And sometimes I can get pretty metaphysical in a way that it's like, okay, Collette, you got to slow down. You've lost people, right? Because I tend to just go like crazy, especially just like understanding the way that our mind projects like a holographic reality, right? And that's the same thing that's true for the Creator. And if you envision that you project a holographic representation of what you believe God is or source is, right? If you create that projection, then the energy of the Creator is going to illuminate that projection from the back. And so that's why it feels so real in the sense that it's like, oh, that's who God is, because that's what I experience. Yes. However, we have to take accountability, again, that this is a projection of your mind, and it's likely that the anger and resentment and bitterness that you felt towards the Creator for taking your brother, right, was probably rooted in what you mentioned about your father, right? The abandonment issues that you had with your dad. And so there's a projection of the dad thing, which also comes from Judeo-Christianity, dogma, like our culture saying that God is a man that lives on a cloud, that every picture of Jesus that we see is white. Like all of these things creates this projection of something that's fueled by our upbringing and 100%. What we've experienced. And so then as you start to dismantle the projection and allow the energy to come through without a filtered screen of your own mind, then all of a sudden I can reframe and I can start to see I can zoom out and see from a greater picture and understand that
whatever your brother's journey was, right? There's still so much grief, of course, when you lose someone that you love. However, you can honor the fact that his soul contract here on this plane was complete.
Yes.
Right? He did what he needed to do when he was here, and his death brought so much more awareness, so much more love, so much more attentiveness and intention to you. And if that was the only goodness that came from that, then it was good.
That was his soul destiny. That's what it was. Soul
destiny, yes.
And there was events that happened before. We could get very woo-woo with this shit. But like, it seemed that kind of what was the thing.
Yes.
You know, and it was great that you brought up my dad, because when I went to this retreat and we have this little sacred space, little did I know that was what came up. Watching another man experiencing his sadness and thing really reflected into me. Wow. Being a witness and reflection, what came up to me, I thought I was there holding on to grief of my brother dying. Little did I know it was actually, I don't want to say hatred, but strong dislike of my father's not showing up in the way that I thought they would. Right. And then it really just led to that was the big stuff, which led to comfortability. Oh, I'm just grieving my brother. Yes. And then what led to my sons, I will not do this to my sons. Right. So it was exactly what you said came down. The fathers, and then went to the grief. But I thought that was the main issue, but it wasn't. And then I found out my sons were the ones really give me purpose, direction, and inspiration to actually lead. My sons are leading me to heal. Yes. You know what I'm saying?
And in the process, you're breaking generational trauma,
exactly.
Right? Your
so they
sons will not have to deal with the shit that you're dealing with right now.
Exactly.
And I think it's so interesting, too, what you're saying about how the grief from your brother was actually ringing the bell of the anger and resentment that you carried towards your father.
Yes.
And that is so much of the human experience that people, they're not aware of that, where something will come up to them and they think that I'm mad at this one situation, or I'm hurt by this one thing. This conflict in my relationship or in my partnership. But really what it's doing is it's ringing the bell that's way deep in your root chakra, probably from when you were a child, about your fear of abandonment.
Yes.
Right? And so it's not that this person is pissing you off or poking your buttons. It's that there's something deep within you that's being illuminated or triggered in that moment, and you're reacting from that place. And so then the work of mindfulness, if you will, is to identify in real time what you just said triggered me. Okay, let me pause.
Yes.
Before I say a fucking word to you, I want to check in with my body.
Yes.
Right? And I want to ask, what is this? And then I'll close my eyes and I take a deep breath. And for as long as it takes, maybe it takes 2 seconds, maybe it takes a minute. And before I'm going to engage with you again, I'm just going to check in with me.
Yes.
And then I'm going to say, oh, okay. So actually when you did that, what it brought up for me was this old feeling of humiliation is a big wound of mine, like feeling humiliated or fear of being humiliated. And so it's like if someone does or says something to me and it triggers that wound in me, then it's like, oh God, that's the way that I respond. And so then to be able to have a conversation like, I recognize you didn't mean it this way, but for me, this what's going on for me is this thing, right? And so, and then you have the opportunity as my friend, or if you're in a partnership or whatever, it's like, okay, I want to adjust my behavior sometimes out of love for this person, knowing that they struggle with this thing.
Yes.
Right, and that's an act of love.
Yes.
Right. I'm not going to change myself. I'm not going to change who I am for them, but I can be intentional, knowing that this is a wound of theirs that they carry.
Yes.
Right. This is the love language that we don't talk about, is acknowledging and creating safe spaces.
Ooh, that's good.
For people to truly express and feel without judgment.
Yes.
And even going back to, trauma is basically, I saw something the other day, I think Mastin Kipp posted about it. Somebody did that I follow in the trauma world, where it's basically trauma is vulnerability and not an unsafety. Right?
Mastin Kipp, I think that's the male, right? He's the dude. Mm-hmm. I think he was the one I was talking about with the brand new experiences where I came from. Yeah, that's where I got that.
So trauma is created when you're feeling vulnerable, yet you're unsafe or you're unprotected. And then healing has to happen in the same degree of vulnerability in a safe environment.
With a new experience.
Which disconfirms the experience that created the trauma in the first place. And so when you're talking about divine partnership, where you and your partner are actually supporting each other on your healing journey, that's what divine partnership truly is to hold an intentional space where your partner has an opportunity to reapproach that vulnerable emotion, whatever they felt in the trauma, whether it's abandonment, whether it's fear of humiliation, whether it's feelings of unworthiness. And it's just holding that super safe container. Like, I see you, you're good.
Yes.
Right? I'm not going to react to you because you're reacting to me right now out of your own trauma. I'm going to ground and sit and be present with you and just say, it's good. You're good. You're safe to feel.
And that's why meditation's important.
Yes.
Because that allows you to have that space so you can stop.
Yes.
Because without practicing meditation, it's the same thing with the book, right? We grab on. I had an analogy yesterday came in, like we are driving a car, which is our body. Emotions are in the passenger seat, but they have like a wheel too, like a student driver.
Yes.
And sometimes if you allow the emotion to drive, you're no longer in control.
Right.
So meditation is giving you that space to not, I see you emotion.
Right.
But I still have the wheel.
Well, it takes the wheel off of the passenger side.
And
I don't need nobody over here driving my fucking car, right?
Exactly.
So it's like, I love that analogy. Just like take the wheel away from the emotions in the sense that they're still in the front seat. Because you're still a fucking human.
Exactly.
You're not going to bypass this shit, right?
Yes.
And that's the other thing. Like I call it pseudo-spirituality on Instagram, that you see a lot of like toxic positivity and like striving for enlightenment and all this stuff that's just creating more of this conditioning that you have to do.
It's turning into a business too. It's turning into a whole industry that just, I know.
It's kind of gross, you know?
Yeah.
And even like I'm kind of in that industry. And so for me, it's like creating my business with such intention to like the financial exchange, right?
Yes.
The energetic exchange of finances and investment of energy into the work.
Currency.
Yes, it's so important. But because it's like, I'm not interested in making 7 figures a month as a digital marketing, blah, 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 right? I don't need to do all of that. What I desire to do is to create and serve a community.
Yes.
And I want to create a life for myself that allows me to be independent, right? And support myself and to stand on my own 2 feet and to have my own apartment and pay my bills and do all those things, right?
And do it with nobody telling you where to go, what to be, what time you have to show up, when that book has to come out, when that anything, right?
Right. And so for me, it's a intentional, it's a constant intentional conversation that I'm having between myself and the creator, because I believe I am in co-creation right now with Balancing Cannabis. It's an extension of me because I love weed, but it's really being powered by the creator, by the source, right? It's coming through as a channeled experience. And so, you know, when it comes to becoming an entrepreneur in this market, in this world, in this culture, and I'm working with sacred practices, and I'm working with intimate healing, and I'm working with people in a way that's really, really vulnerable, finding that beautiful line of charging, not my worth, because I don't like that phrase, but charging for what the 5 years that I've spent studying and learning and creating and cultivating this practice and creating a coaching program and doing all of that stuff, and helping to make sure that my stuff is accessible. Because I don't want one person who wants to pay $5,000. I want 50 people. I want 100 people. I want 200 people. And so no, it's not the quickest way to build an online business. But I would rather have more people come and say, you know what, I can spend $35 on this workshop because I want to learn a little bit more. Or like, oh, my teacher training is $333. It's like, it's not a ton of money, but it's definitely an investment, right? You have to be committed to the work in a way. And so it's like, come for free on Monday nights if you want, come to the workshops for $30 if you want, come to the teacher training for $300 if you want. And then there will be other ways to work in more depth with more investment, right?
See, and so, that was the kind of thing I want to talk when we were talking before the podcast, is that helping through that. Because it's like, I feel the same exact way. It's like, there's mentors I feel in different and everyone's a level, right? There's different levels to it, like we talked about. But how are we charging so much money and you're only as fast as your slowest man. And in a group, in a tribe, you're only as strong as the weakest person. And I don't mean that in the negative context, right? I mean that in like, not everyone is created equal. So how do we help the majority of people? Because I think the same thing. When I provide my tools, I want it to be accessible also. Right. But there'll be levels to this. Right. How much time you want with me is this level. How much things, these are levels to them. But the bulk of what I want to give needs to be accessible. Right. You know?
But it has to have some energetic exchange
100%,
on it, because people don't invest into something energetically or emotionally if they're not invested financially. This is just the way of our world right now.
It's the way of it is.
And so this is why, to me, like I remember I did a at my yoga teacher training, we had a workshop that was done by a life coach. And so he was supporting, like helping us get into a framework of becoming an entrepreneur, right? And it was kind of my first exposure to it. And so the diagram that he drew was like this big funnel where like it was wide at the top and then comes narrow at the bottom, like an upside down triangle. And so then he was saying like, okay, so you want to make something that's accessible to a lot of people for little to no money, right? So my Monday night meditation is a donation-based practice. You can come and do $2, you can come and do $100 or $0. It doesn't matter.
What do you do that on, by the way?
On Zoom.
Oh, okay, on Zoom. Okay.
Thanks for asking. Great question. So then at the next level in, it's not going to be quite as accessible to as many people, but here's a different opportunity that requires a different level of engagement and a different investment, right? And so then there's my workshops. There's $35.
Yes.
Right? So you can come and spend an afternoon with me for $35.
Yeah.
Then there's a next level down, which again is not going to be, not only is it not going to be available, but it's not going to be appealing. Not everybody wants to do a cannabis meditation teacher training. And that's great. So then it's available for those that want to do it. And so you can continue to move down and down and down. And then ultimately, if you want to work with me one-on-one, then it's again, another different conversation, right? So when I do coaching programs, I work with people one-on-one, then it's an investment per session and all of that. And so to me, it was like, okay, I want to reach a lot of people. I know that I have a lot of different things that I want to offer as well. And so trying to get really clear on who I'm talking to and who I want to share what I'm teaching with was a really big part of it. And I think that going into it just depends on what you're trying to do. If you want to make a lot of money really fast, then you have to make an expensive product and find the right people to buy that product. If you want to start a movement and a revolution and you want to have a hand in fucking collective healing, right? Then I need my shit out to as many people as possible. And I know, as someone who has struggled financially for most of my life, that it's hard to make an investment into things. Even if I believe in it with all my being, it's hard to drop $300 on something, right? And so it's like I continue everything that I create, whether it's a little short video on Instagram or it's a course or it's a teacher training or it's a workshop or whatever. It's like I want to create so much more value than what you're paying for, essentially, so that it not only is like, yes, this was such an important investment, I got so much more out of it than what I even invested into it, because that to me is such good energy. And that fuels and drives the momentum of what I'm doing, because at the end of the day, because of the visions that I've had, I know that this is going to get out.
It's coming.
People are going to get it, right? And I don't need to hoard money in fear and charge $4,000 for this coaching program or whatever. Not at this point in my life. I don't need to do that right now. Now, in 10 years from now, when I have a couple books and I'm doing conferences and I'm doing this thing, and if you want a one-on-one session with me, then probably, the price is going to go up. Because my time is not going to be as accessible. And so for me right now, it's like I just look at like the group of people in Vegas here that are coming to my meditation tonight. Like I look at these human beings and I'm like, I want my work to be accessible to you in a way that doesn't feel stressful. Because we're all on a grind. We're all trying to pay our bills and make ends meet and get our life right and our relationships right. It's like I want to show up and be able to say, hey, come and just be with me and just hear. But also, you know, I paid for an Airbnb and I flew out here and I did the thing. So it's like, it's kind of this interesting, really beautiful exchange. And I think that as a culture, we have some dismantling to do on the individual level, exactly what you've said multiple times, around our relationship to money and the money energetic exchange and all of that stuff. And so becoming a business owner is a really big part of really facing that.
I had experience. My second, I think the third episode with Paul Duncan, we talked about last time, we talked about afterwards, and like, I just sold the house. I bought a truck a couple years ago, and it was I had plenty of money to pay off the truck, and I made some money in the stock market. So it was just like, he's like, bro, why don't you just fucking pay it off? Like he literally why don't you just fucking pay it off? Like, why? You have the money. This is freedom. Now you're not worrying about, you lose your job, whatever. Now you have this whole truck, you have this thing. So like, I have no debt now, right? Like, so it's like, boom, done. But that thing of looking at my bank account and seeing the zeros was a thing. And I didn't realize that how big it was a thing for me. And I think it came from trauma in the past about money, because when I went to Afghanistan, before that, I was making a lot of money before my brother died. And I decided to give it away to take a job. But little did I know the flow got me here. Like, so it was perfect timing, right? But I went to Afghanistan, didn't come back, didn't get a job right away, didn't spend my money correctly that one time. Got money again, lost it again. So 2 times, right, I lost it. And I was like, the third time, I'm not going to fuck this up. And I guess, I don't feel like I fucked it up by paying off debt, paying off my truck, because now it's mine. Right.
Right.
But taking it away still felt the same as losing it, like I was making the wrong decision.
Right.
But this time I lost the money, but I actually did the right decision. So I flipped it. And then I started getting, that's why I got into the investment, because I need to learn about this money thing.
Right.
And I listened to one dude who's like, money is currency. It has to flow. It's not meant to just stay in your bank account and just be and, hoard your money.
Right.
And it's like, if it's not growing, you're actually losing money with inflation and all these different things going on. So I was like, okay, I got to figure this thing out and go into the work. And now I lost $1,000 in 30 minutes one time. Like, shit, the stock market. But then the next day I got $4,000.
Right.
It's a wave.
Right.
And it's just a mastering that currency.
And we all have money issues
Yeah.
because money is very unnatural for us as human beings. Like, it doesn't really make sense. There's a really great book called The Soul of Money by Lynn Twist. I highly recommend it to anybody that's unpacking their relationship to money, because it's so important. And like for me, and probably for a lot of women specifically, because of the generational wound of feelings of unworthiness, that a lot of that is connected also to financial abundance and our belief in our worthiness of that financial abundance. And another analogy that I like to give too, in regards to what you're saying, that every time you go in and do some healing within yourself, you're supporting the healing of the others, the collective. If you imagine that the collective consciousness of all of the human species is a grid, like an energy grid, like an electricity grid in a city or something, that every time that you go in and do work, you're increasing or adding more energy into the grid.
Oh, that's good.
And as you add more energy into the grid, the energy becomes more available for all humans. And so when you're liberating energy of shame and trauma out of your being, you're essentially adding more love energy into the grid that becomes available to others to use.
You know what that reminded me of? So Paul Chek, I don't know if you heard of Paul Chek, but it was a podcast I was listening to him say, it's like, all we need is 1 million people to get on board. Because 1 million people to feel this and be living this does a culture shift for everybody.
The energetic implications are massive, right?
Yes.
It's like we don't need every single human being on earth to have this type of opening or this type of awakening. We don't. It would be great if they did, but we don't. We just need a good chunk of us that are saying, you know what? I want more out of this life. I don't want to be a slave to my suffering. I don't want to be stuck in the matrix. I don't want to be stuck in this third dimension. I don't want to be unconsciously just following my nervous system around the world, because the nervous system is so afraid of everything. Right? So I want to live from a place of groundedness, from a place of truth, and from a place of co-creation. So I'm both putting an effort to create the life that I want, and I'm putting the floaty up underneath my arms, and I'm just on the current, just big chilling, like a little sun on my cheeks, just like, ooh, it feels so good to be me right now. I love it. And then finding that beauty and silliness and joy back in the every moment that you live, right? Because as you just said, like, these motherfuckers aren't going to be here for a while, right? Like, we don't know how long we're here, any of us. And if you think about the timeline of history and the eternalness, and you're here for such a tiny blip in this human body, and whatever you believe about karma and past lives, and if you're going to come back, it doesn't even matter, because you're only in this life as this human doing this work, holding these gifts for so long. You know, maybe the next time you come around, you're doing something completely different. So it's like, what are you going to do here now? And it doesn't have to be a job, right? I think a lot of people confuse their soul's purpose for a job that is fulfilling. And that's not true. Your soul's purpose on earth, like, okay, for example, the language that I have been given for myself is that my soul's purpose is to exist at such a vibration of love that it is new and unfamiliar for people. So they have an experience of the energy of love within themselves that they've never experienced before, right? How I choose to express that soul's purpose, like, I'm here to just be love. What does that even mean? I can choose to express that in any different way. So balancing cannabis, although yes, it is an extension or an expression of my soul's purpose, but it's not the only thing I'm on this plane to do. The only thing I'm on this plane to do is love. And so balancing cannabis is just the manifestation of that love, plus a deep love for weed. And I was like, man, let's do it. It's fun, right? And so, and I also feel like, well, that's a whole other side note, I think. But really the point I'm getting back to is that, again, back to this pseudo-spirituality on Instagram and this like striving for enlightenment and all these things. It's just like, yeah, but your soul's purpose is not a job. Your soul's purpose is in energy usually, and it's usually in forgiveness or in love or grace, compassion, kindness, goodness, gentleness, whatever these little words are. We're all here to learn and remember and remind of those things.
Yes, and I feel like for me, it goes back to sometimes I feel it's not about the doing. I forget, what am I doing the work for? The reason why I'm doing this is to enjoy life. is to be here with my friends, to freaking smile as much as I can, to do all these different experiences, that I'm alive because I am alive. I don't know what the hell is going to happen next, even if I think, incarnation or all that other stuff, right? Heaven or whatever, all this stuff. I don't know.
Right.
That's the unknown to me, even though if I feel like it's not over, even though what it is, I don't feel like I die and nothing happens. I'm just black.
Right.
But this tree is fucking nice.
Right.
Let me admire this
just enjoy
tree.
it.
That ocean. I can't wait to be at the river in summer with a floaty or my kayak going down the freaking river.
And then you can experience that physically in the body. What does it feel like in the body to be in the creative flow of the entire universe?
Hell yeah.
And once you feel it and you know it, then it's like, oh, okay, now I know how to get back here. And so cannabis meditation essentially becomes a treasure map or a road map that once you do it once, you can tap back into that same energetic state anytime.
Let's go, federal government. I need to be doing this thing, man.
Let's do it. Let's legalize.
Go, man.
Legalize it. Let all the prisoners out because that's bullshit. And then let's just have a mass awakening, a mass healing.
For the military, I feel like it's going to be so
It's
good.
common. It's common. It's going to be like just like how gay marriage was federally legalized.
Yeah.
Remember it? We were like, when is this going to happen? And then you turn around and snap, it was there. You're like, oh,
It's just
shit. It was like a Tuesday.
Dude,
you woke up and it was legal.
The
That's what's going to
military
happen.
needs this, man.
Yes.
Like, soldiers, every service member, like not every, but there's healing that needs to happen.
So if I can just interject, I have a friend who runs a nonprofit called Balanced Veterans, and he's based out of Philadelphia, and he's a vet, and he's doing cannabis education, cannabis advocacy, and trying to get cannabis
get this guy on the podcast.
Oh my God, you do. He's amazing.
Yeah.
So trying to get accessible medical cannabis to vets, but even more focused on teaching and helping people learn how to use plant medicines to heal PTSD.
Yes.
Right? And how to actually come back from the military and to be able to not be fucked up from it.
And that's
right?
the culture. What I'm learning, so I do retention in the military. And almost 15 years, it'll be 15 years in July.
Wow.
And part of the culture, it seems, is to be sick.
Yeah.
Because they get a disability check when they get out.
Right.
And it's like, why do you want to be part of something that's going to hurt you later?
Right.
I want it's a financial benefits long term. I do 20 years. I'm going to get a pension later. Cool. But why am I wanting to do nothing afterwards and then get a disability? If you got hurt while you're in, cool. Do what you're supposed to do. But don't live in the sickness.
Right.
Don't want to be. Yeah. I feel like it's a culturally accepted. You're gonna get the VA, you're gonna do disability, and it's like, I got 100%. Like, bro, like, unless you really need that 100%, why are you aiming for 100%?
Well,
because then it goes back to the same thing about the water.
Yes.
You're intentionally making yourself fucking sick.
It's you're speaking that over yourself because you're creating an identity. The same thing when I was diagnosed at 15 with depression.
Yeah.
And have been told for 20 years, oh, well, your brain is broken. Your brain just doesn't make the right chemicals.
Yeah,
or just like
diabetics
need insulin, you need antidepressants, right? And my mom said a lot of that. Bless her heart, I love her so much because that was what she believed. And that's what she was told. She's in the medical industry, right? And so she did believe that, and that was her way of comforting me and offering support. But to be 15 years old and to hear from parents, friends, doctors, everybody around me that my brain is broken, then it was like, oh, okay, well, I guess my brain is broken.
I just listened to a study talking about how they had one kid, he woke up, his mom looked at him and said, hey, son, you're looking sick, right? He's like, no, I feel fine. Goes into the kitchen to get dinner breakfast in the morning, get breakfast, and the dad's like, dude, what's going on with you? Like, you don't look good. Something's happening. And then the teacher was on it too. He goes to school and was like, man, whatever his name is, you're not looking too good. An hour and a half later, he comes down with the cold. And then 30 minutes after that, the doctor comes in. You were part of a study where we influenced you based off, I forgot the specific word they used, but they influenced you to get sick,
like
and then
the
you got sick. You're not sick.
Right.
You're good.
Right.
This was all planned.
It's so, and like the mind is so powerful that we don't even understand what it's doing when we're being fed with this information that's not serving us. And so what you're saying about the military and the VA, like I don't have that experience, so I don't know from my own personal perspective, but just knowing people that have had the experience where, once you take that on, because it is a perk, if you will, but then it becomes your identity, and then you're locked into being in your suffering, right? In some way.
And then most people, like, I'm not saying most of them, but they just get out and they just chill on the couch and they just, I'm like, bro, you have, veterans. I'm a veteran, obviously, but I feel like that you've been around the world, you've seen different cultures, you get a lot of experience, communication. There's a lot of things I've had issues with being in the military because they're not really open to a lot of this stuff, but there's a lot of healing things. But it's also the knowledge is so good. The communication systems that they have, it's like the way they can plan things. There's great knowledge in here that can be shared outside also. They fund the DOD really big.
Right.
There's a lot of good things. But what if we did it not for the intention of war?
Right.
We need that because, I always think about like Native Americans. Every culture there's a warrior archetype for a reason because we understand that somebody can choose the other path of hurt and trauma and really stay in there. So we have to be defensive for ourselves. We have to provide some type of safety.
Yes.
But what if we put the same effort? We always think about the worst shit. What if we put the same effort in the imagination on the best shit?
Yes.
And start focusing there too. We prepare because we don't want to be unprepared. Wolves come at night, even if we live in just hunter-gatherer tribes. The animals are out there. The earth is, this is the plane we live in. Secure ourselves, security, 360 security. I'm talking to, all these different things, right? But then it's also, okay, that's happening, but the container,
right?
A safety container in the physical form.
Right.
What are we going to do for the physical form for the best of life?
Right. But then let's not demonize a plant.
Exactly.
Right? Like why can't we just allow just cannabis? Like why can't we just allow it to coexist with us in all of these spaces, right? It's just that's what we're changing in the culture, and that's the stigma, and that's the cultural approach that we're shifting and changing and all that. And the military is like, again, I don't know, so I'm just speaking from my own outside perspective, but it's like that's deeply entrenched into the cultural conditioning around the war. It's called the war on drugs. So obviously the military is very much aligned with that. So to me, it's like I'm just hopeful. I just want to be hopeful that like as this becomes more legal, that people are finding the way to use cannabis to serve them wherever they are on their journey. Whether you're a vet, whether you're an entrepreneur, whether you're a business person, it doesn't matter. Like you're a stay-at-home mom, you're whatever, like wherever you land, this is for the humans, right? This is for the humans, and it will serve you when you know how to use it properly. Now, of course, cannabis is not for everybody. Like, little disclaimer, there's some, like a very small percentage of human bodies that can't consume cannabis, and I totally get that. But for the most part, most of us could use to just chill a little bit, smoke a little bit of weed, be present with yourself, and just allow newness.
Laugh, bro.
Yes.
Like, what if you laughed? We were talking yesterday. Medicine is, you said earlier, medicine can just be fucking laughing.
Laugh. Oh my God. It feels,
when's the last time people laugh?
Yes, when you lay on the ground and you're with your friends and you're laughing so loud and like your throat is dry and this hurts and it's like you can't stop.
Your cheeks hurt.
Yes, but then afterwards you're like, God, did I just have an orgasm? Like, what just happened? It feels so good, right? And that is medicine. Pleasure is healing. The energy of love, the sensation of pleasure, and that feel good energy that you feel in your body, that is healing for you. And so even for me, I have to remind myself, because I find myself in a lot of serious conversations a lot. Right? I talk to people about their trauma. I talk to people about their emotions and sensitivity, right? And so I do find myself in a lot of those kind of heavy conversations, and I'm constantly, luckily I have a lot of great people around me that are like, okay, Collette, you need to get out of the house. You need to go out and be in nature, do something fun. Like, you're getting a little stiffy, you know? And so it's like having good reflections around me that help me pull out of that sometimes heaviness.
That's so good that you said that to me.
Yeah.
Because I feel like I get trapped in there too, because that's what I'm always trying to solve.
Yes.
Right? How do I get myself, because I feel aligned to, this is what I'm, the podcast, the other things, the funnel, I'm creating those things.
Yes.
How do I get people, I can see the light in you and I want to bring that out, but I have to face all these masks and I can't keep that on me.
Right.
And I found that my mind holds on to those thoughts.
Right.
So then when I'm living my life, I'm not in the flow of myself. Right. So I need to get into nature and have all those other things.
And it's like, my desire to serve people is sometimes blinding, in the sense that I lose sight of serving myself sometimes, right? Because I'm like, okay, let me just help you. Come on. And it's like, even though I'm usually always in a good space to do it, but it's like, yeah, but have you taken time to just laugh and be light today, Collette? Or are you still just like, okay, let me help you, please, I can help, you know? And that's kind of for
Savior
me that
mentality.
And that was a big part of healing and breaking down and reframing and redeveloping a new relationship with my own ego, right? My personality self that does have, in her wounded state, has that, like, it's a wounded healer archetype, where it's like, I will bleed out for you. I will martyr myself for you so you don't have to suffer. I will heal you. I can fix you. I can do all these things.
That's Christianity in our culture.
Right. And that was all stemmed from my own trauma and my upbringing. And so then in healing, it's coming into what I call the empowered healer, which is that I'm not your healer. I'm my own healer, but I can hold space for you as you find your own sense of healing within yourself. But then also remembering that, like, me bleeding out doesn't serve anybody.
No.
Right? At all. And so I have to, this is the form of self-love that we talk about in a very, like, sort of loose way that I think a lot of people don't fully grasp under completely. Self-love is like, no, that's completely understanding that I can't pour from an empty cup. I can't be martyred and then still serve, right? And so what does that mean? Well, Collette, you need to laugh a little bit more. You need to be a little lighter. You're just a little too heavy sometimes.
Yes.
You know, and that...
Shit, talking to the choir over here.
Right. And in my past with, like, the depression and the anxiety and all that, like, that was my habit of, like, sinking into sometimes.
Yes.
And so now I'm so crystal clear of, like, when my barometer is tipping towards falling down that same kind of slippery slope, if you will. And so a lot of that is just remembering, like, I'm supposed to have fun too.
Remember to remember.
And the more fun that I'm having, you know, the more people are attracted to what I'm doing. And so then it's like, oh, hey, let's do all these fun things. And they're like, what do you do? And I'm like, well, I do deep emotional healing, you know? And they're like, really? I was at brunch the other day, and after brunch, 2 waitresses came up to me. They weren't even, like, servers. 2 servers came up to me. They weren't even our servers. Yeah. And they came up to me, and they were like, I just have to ask, like, what do you do? And I was like, oh, well, I do a little bit of this, a little bit of that, you know? And so it was just really funny because it's like people are paying attention, they're listening. And when you're on a journey of serving whoever, right? We're all here. If we're creating something, we have a desire in our heart to serve. Serve humanity in some way. I want to serve the evolution of our species. I want to add to the creative energy on this plane. Like, I want to be a part of that. And so when you're doing that and you're embodying that, it's so attractive to people because we all have that innate desire to create, right? We are all the energy of creation within ourselves. So when I witness somebody, like I witness you in your vibe, you know, and like rubbing up against your military, you know, technical things and trying to learn this new creative energy, like that's so inspiring because it triggers that same thing in me. And we're in a similar season of life. And so obviously we resonate in that way. But like even when you're out to breakfast or whatever, and somebody who's not yet in that season, who just looks to you and says, oh, I want to do that. Or I don't know what you're doing, but I want to do it. Or it's like, I want what you're having. Or just like, yes. And it's like remembering that like the universe responds to fun and to joy and to laughter and to lightheartedness and goodness, right? And so our work then is to just put down whatever's keeping us from that space, right? It's not like we're holding it. It's like, oh my God.
That's the thing. I'm really, we're holding it.
Oh my God, but I don't want to suffer anymore. And it's like, oh, well then put it down. Well, but I'm holding my water bottle for those that can't. I'm like clutching it to my being. Like we just like hold on to it in the sense of like, oh, I don't want to suffer anymore. And then someone's like, oh, well then here, give me your water bottle. And it's like, well, like, no.
I don't.
Well, I'll just hold it for a little while longer.
We were actually having a conversation about this last week. About how people... it was like specifically talking about like cops and the riots that are happening and the people like it's pretty much like the stigma on cops don't do good things for cops, right? And then the other people are like cops are always after us. So it's like there's 2 processes that are happening. One, people don't want to think of cops in a different way, and cops don't want to think about people in a different way. So it's like both have to heal. We get addicted to our poorness. We don't want to let go of what has been. So it's just like any movement, there's 2 sides. And what really has to happen, we both have to put the cup down and talk about, man, like I'm not trying to do anything as a cop, you know? And the guy's like, I'm not trying to do this or whatever the thing is that is happening. But that is a manifestation of so many things, right? And I was reading this book. It's like, it's a saying, the rich get richer. Well, that's because, and the poor get poorer. Well, that saying speaks about what we're talking about. The poor think about being poor, so they get poor. The rich think about getting richer, so they get richer. We got to put down the cups that are no longer serving us because we hold on to what we don't want, and it's uncomfortable to letting go.
Yes.
You know, it's uncomfortable. I think I talked on Friday with you a little bit about I'm holding on my masks. Those masks I hold on to, but that thing keeps knocking on my door, and I'm like shaking in my seat and like, fuck, like, let it go, motherfucker, let it go. And then finally I feel my adjustment. I'm sitting up straight. I made it.
Yes.
You know?
Yes.
But the same thing you talked about with the cannabis, when you're in your feelings, and you might have to shake, you might have to scream, you might have to cry. Your body needs to release that energy, and that energy releases can be anything. And it reminds me of, I had a conversation with a man years ago, and he saw me dancing at night, right, at a party, and he texted me on Instagram. I was like, bro, how do you dance like that? You know, what do you think I can do to dance like that?
Yeah.
And I literally asked him, I was like, bro, like, do you dance by yourself in your room? Like, can you do that?
Yes.
And he said no, he's never done it.
That's a very vulnerable thing for a lot of people.
It's crazy.
It's crazy.
By yourself.
Right.
In your room.
Right.
It's like, I know you have one song
that just like
that gets you, motherfucker.
Yes.
Yeah. Right.
Yes.
I know you got one
You
song
gotta
that
have one.
gets
Everybody
you.
has one.
Put
Yes.
that bitch on.
Yes.
Be in your underwear. Be naked for a goddamn sense. Like, you need to you allow yourself to get in it, because it's in there, and that's what you see in me.
Yes.
When you saw that, that's what you saw in me, is that I just let myself be.
It's just freedom.
Freedom and letting my expression. I might not have all the best dance moves. I might be, but I do know if I put effort and time in it, I'll get better.
Right. And even if you don't get better, you'll get more comfortable in you're not very good of a dancer.
If that's the thing I want to do, right? Yeah.
I'm just being comfortable being uncomfortable.
Yes.
Yeah,
almost.
or being comfortable just being you, man.
Just being yourself.
Just floating, like back to the river navigation, just floating. I'm not here trying to be a break dancer of the world or like top dancer. I'm just here to let my to enjoy this moment and have fun.
So good.
So dance in your underwear, bro.
Yeah.
You know, and so it's those little things, like, because
dance
it's
in your underwear. That's the best advice I've heard all day.
yeah, because they can't.
After all this, that's the best.
That's it. That's all, and the episode here, because it's like just dance in your underwear.
Dance in your underwear by yourself. Listen to your goddamn favorite song and be, because that right there will open the.
And if you really want to get crazy, pray over some cannabis and consume with some intention, and then get in your underwear then fucking dance to your favorite song, and you will meet the creator. Like, you will go into a deep place. And that's the beauty of it. However you want to incorporate the intentional use of cannabis into your life, you can do it.
Yes, you
and
can.
It will shift your whole world. And that is the beautiful part. And actually, dancing in your underwear is one of the embodiment exercises that I guide women that I coach through. And I'll tell them, like, not in their underwear necessarily, but I'll say, like, I want you to set up a video camera and just put some music on and just move your body, whatever it looks like, whatever it feels like, who cares? Just close your eyes and move your body, and I want you to send me the video. And really, that's more just in the coaching relationship, just for like accountability, but also for that vulnerability of being seen. And I'm like, I'll send you one of me too, so that we're like equally vulnerable here. And it's just like, it's such an important way to know thyself, right? And ultimately, cannabis meditation is a way for you to know thyself. And the way that I describe it when I'm educating people about the practice is that you will know your range. You will know yourself as the energy of creation, as the energy of love, dissolved into an eternal sea of energy, unbound by the body and the mind, and just floating in a sea of eternal goodness. You will know yourself that way, but you will also know all of your fucking pain and your trauma and your shit and all of your all of your messy, human, vulnerable, raw, beautiful human, your humanity. And I think that as we, as a culture,
it's beautiful because every place is sacred, right? Go back to
because everything about you is sacred. Everything about your body, everything that you've experienced, everything that who you are is sacred because you were created with intention. There's a reason that you have the personality that you have. There's a reason that you express in your sexuality the way that you do. There's a reason that you laugh at what you laugh at and the glitter and light that you have in your being. We're all here to evolve the species, to evolve the collective, but unfortunately we spend so much time trying to mimic these archetypes or these people that we see outside of us that we're not actually contributing to the evolution because we're just cookie cuttering ourselves to be like the latest influencer or the latest whatever or the latest pop thing. And it's like, all you have to do is find who you are, and everything from your life will flow from there. The truth is in the energy. Energy does not lie, ever, right? And so if you want to know who you are, go inward and find your energy, and you will find your truth. and then have the fucking courage to live from that place in everywhere that you go. So like, if you meet me in person, it's likely I'm going to tell you that I love you. You're going to hear that I talk about God. You're going to hear that I talk about cannabis, right? It's just who I am, right? I'm not afraid of it anymore. And so people will come close that want to come close. People will come close enough that don't want to come too close, right? I get a lot of that. Yeah. I get a lot of that, which is good, right?
Yeah,
it's like
feel
just,
it.
right? Yeah.
Because you know what the truth is that I'm going to say. I feel the same thing.
Yes. Yeah. And then sometimes I'm so repulsive, right? I'm so repellent to people that are not in alignment with me because I know who I am.
Yes.
And this is that going back to that period of isolation or solitude or loneliness on the journey of remembering is that people that are no longer in resonance with you will be repelled to you, but we cling to relationships and friendships and people in our life out of comfort, even if they're not, we're not serving each other.
Yes.
It's not even like, oh, excuse me, you're not serving me anymore. Like, not in this egotistical, I'm better than you thing, but you're not serving them either anymore, right? So relationships dissolve, and so can we allow...
And it's okay.
It's okay.
It's okay.
It's okay if relationships separate and move away from each other. You walked along each other on a point for the journey, and then your paths went in different directions. Can you just honor them, thank them for what they showed you, for what they taught you, for the love that you learned through your exchange with them, and then can you say goodbye peacefully, right? And so the evolution, the journey, the process is all something that we are given the opportunity to take, right? And then those with the courage will find what they seek. But it takes courage. It does. To be vulnerable, if you've lived your entire life never dancing one time alone in your underwear, like if you don't know vulnerability, vulnerability is the fucking scariest thing that you've ever known, right? And that's the beauty of it. There's so much raw, messy humanness in the healing journey that it's like, I get why people don't want to pursue it. But also...
the reward
is... there's so much reward.
It's so good.
It's so much bliss. There's so much pleasure. There's so much goodness. And I don't know. It's all of the above.
Don't be scared to be yourself.
Don't be
scared
to be yourself.
That was the first motive. When I first did my first motivational speech, and the name of it was, "Are you brave enough to create your own path?"
Yes.
That was the whole essence of it.
And honestly, it's scary as fuck.
It is, because you don't know everything.
Yes.
You don't know what's coming. You don't know what it is. You're walking into the unknown.
There's so many levels of it that are unknown. And if you for me, it's a daily conscious decision.
Yes.
To choose courage, because at any point I could slip back into fear. At any time.
I was just talking to a friend yesterday at Saucy's thing, and she was saying how a mentor or someone that she likes is like, everyone's always scared. We're always fearful. The difference is typically with people is that they step into it and do it anyways.
Well, having courage is not the absence of fear.
Exactly.
Having courage is to acknowledge the fear.
Yes.
And to choose to move forward.
Still do it.
Right. And I think that our response to fear is a reflection of our nervous system, right? And if we've created or lived our entire life in a state of fear, we actually feel more comfortable in fear.
Back to holding the cup.
We're more comfortable in fear than we are in freedom. And so we actually create more experiences in our life that perpetuate more fear because our nervous system knows fear.
Yes.
Right? I'm comfortable in fear because I know it.
Yep.
But I'm not going to get anywhere.
Yep.
Right? And so then and the same thing is true for anything. Feelings of unworthiness, feelings of unsafety, feelings of chaos, feelings of whatever. Like, we're going to recreate whatever our nervous system was created in, the environment that our nervous system was created in, we're going to recreate that for ourselves unconsciously until we are all of a sudden like, wait a second, I don't want to do this anymore. This is dumb.
Yes.
I want to have courage.
Hell yeah.
And so, yes, fear, I hear you. I know that you're still fucking scared.
Yep.
But we're going anyways.
You're not holding the goddamn steering wheel anymore.
I took the steering wheel off
That's
of you.
right.
Yes.
Yep.
I have I'm the one in charge here.
Yes.
Right? And so... yeah, and then when you're wanting to, and then you want to talk about being an entrepreneur or having a podcast and talking about things that are still taboo or still stigmatized or still whatever, it's a whole other level of fear, right?
Yep.
And so I find myself just daily in and out, just constantly being like, you're good, you're grounded, you have people around you that support you, the practice is real, people are you're good.
Yeah,
keep going.
Keep going, because that's one thing. It took like the 9 episodes or 10 episodes, and this is the 12th, I think. Every episode I'd be like, fuck, what did I say, dog? I didn't say this. Maybe I said that. The last podcast, I was like, y'all half-assed, or the one with me and him. Like, I said a moment where I was like, I felt in me, I was like, people got to stop half-assing it because you affect me. you affect me in my environment. I don't stop half-assing it because you're fucking bringing that on me.
Yes.
And I was just in my shit for a moment and I let it out.
Yep.
But afterwards, like, it's been on my mind.
Yes.
Like, fuck, should I have done that? Like, did I say that wrong? Did I fucking, but lucky enough I have support, right? And I was like, no, bro, people need to hear this shit.
Hear it.
They need to hear this thing. And then honestly, what I'm learning too is expressing this.
Yes.
So me expressing it right now, like, helps me feel better. Like, I fucking questioned the fuck out of myself after I did that. But it's also like, this is the reason why I have this.
Right.
And we were talking on the episode how I feel because of having this, it's like I can't fake it anymore. I can't, there's no excuse. I'm trying to show up, and I am showing up by doing this.
Yes.
So just keep showing the fuck up, and it keeps embodying it. And God damn it, look at my awesome guests that I get to fucking talk to and shit. So we'll wrap it up. What would you like to finish? Plug your stuff. Tell them what's your last message. And yes, we'll do that first.
Plug my stuff. Okay. Well, find me on Balancing Cannabis on Instagram, or I have a website, or I have YouTube as well. And so you can just look at the stuff that I've made, knowing that I could be making a lot more, in this day of culture, like disposable content. But I'm creating.
Do you have a TikTok?
I don't. And everybody keeps saying that to me.
Sleeping on, dude. I've been talking about TikTok for like years.
Everybody's been telling me to do it. But the issue is for me is that I cannot even bring myself to like edit a thing or do a thing when it comes to like a video. And
it's once you figure it out, like once you make like 5 to 6 of them, like you figure it out pretty quick.
All right.
It's a lot though. Like for me, I like even my Instagram, he does the TikTok one. I'm like, I feel like I need to hire someone to do this.
It's a lot.
Because it's reading the books, doing all the other stuff. Like I'm trying to master my craft also. And then it's like, how many things am I trying to master?
Right. It's just
is there somebody else who's good at this? So if you want to flow and move and you're good at social media, hit me up. We can talk.
Yes, for sure.
Yeah. But back to you.
So basically you can find me on on YouTube, Instagram, and then my website, balancingcannabis.com. If you resonate with anything that I'm talking about, whether it's holding cannabis meditation spaces, whether it's just using the practice for your own evolution and growth, or for whatever's coming beyond this. Ultimately, I see myself building an entire network of healers of different kinds, space holders, body workers, light workers, intuitive therapists, life coaches, health coaches, whatever. I see a whole network of people coming and gathering around the practice that I've cultivated, and sharing the message of cannabis and how it can be leveraged inside any of these healing modalities. I would love to just work with you, or just meet you, or just have you come, and whatever that looks like for you. So just come to a Monday night meditation. My goal is just to continue to grow that and just get as many people meditating on cannabis as possible. And then just follow me and come see me in person, or do whatever. I don't know. Remember,
Monday, 6 p.m. It's on her Instagram.
Yes.
You'll get the link on there. 6 p.m. Links on the flyer.
Yes. Links on the flyer.
Links on the flyer. And we're going to have it also on our stuff too. It's the same. Oh, I guess it's not the same one every time. But.
No, it is. It's the same link every time.
Oh, perfect.
And
so there you go.
Just go to that. It's the same room. You log in. You don't have to have your cameras on. I do ask that people turn their camera on just to say hi, because I'm like, it's a little bit weird that I'm like opening my most vulnerable space. And so it's like, I just want to see that you're a human being behind the square. But you don't have to leave your camera on.
There might be aliens on it, man.
There might be aliens or AI or who knows what's, whatever's going on. And yes, so ultimately just trying to share this practice with as many people as possible. So I love engagement online. I love answering questions. I love people just sharing their experiences and what they're experiencing in cannabis meditation. I have a workshop once a month, and then I have a teacher training. My next teacher training is the first weekend in June. So I don't know. There's a lot of stuff. There's a book coming too one day if I can ever just like get off the floaty. I'm just like smoking a joint on the floaty, just chilling. And it's like, are you gonna write the thing? It's coming.
The book's gonna come after just around the river bend.
Yes.
That's so funny.
Yes, for sure. And I mean, I think that's pretty much it. Okay. Really honest as far as the plug. But I would say that the last thing that I would ever say, honestly, at the end of the day, is that everything is sacred.
Yes.
Right? And we are in choice to create the life that we want. Right? And what does that actually mean? Most times we don't even take 5 minutes to sit down and even think about what is the life that you want. And so I would encourage you, camera, I don't know who's looking at me, which camera now, but I would encourage you to take a moment to bless your cannabis, to sit down with a journal, with a draft paper, or with a whiteboard, whatever, and then just be really present with yourself and just fucking dream. Just imagine, just create. What do you want to do with your life? What are you good at? What drives you? What is igniting inside of you? Like, where do you want to put your energy? And don't worry about how am I going to pay the bills or how am I going to do that. Just start creating. Start creating the life that you want. Take accountability for who you are as a human being. Right the wrongs that you've done and apologize, and then receive apologies from those that have hurt you. Be free of pain, be free of suffering, and just remember that you are the energy of love shoved into a tiny human body here to experience yourself in every human being that you meet. And this is how we cultivate more love. This is how we cultivate unity consciousness. And this is how we create a new experience on this plane. And cannabis meditation can show you the way. And if you don't believe me, then come on Monday.
Awesome. Well, once again, hell yeah, that was awesome.
It's great. It's a great final message.
Hell yeah. Hey, thank you so much for being here. It
much.
aligned so perfectly.
Oh, it was perfect.
It was all perfect. And clearly, this is the conversation that needed to happen.
This needed to happen, yes.
I'm really grateful for meeting you. I'm grateful for all the stuff. And I look forward to
thank you.
all this to come with us.
Thank you so much.
All
I agree.
right?
It's going to be beautiful.
Hell yeah.
Yes.
So I appreciate it. All right.
Congrats.
Decisive Element.
Thank you.
Congrats, you're the I think this is the longest.
This is the longest podcast we've had.
I do feel like I have a supernatural gift of talking for
It's
a
good.
really long
Well,
time.
that's what I'm trying to create.
Yes.
Like, I guess, honest, we're building up. I want to get to the Joe Rogan 3 hours and some shit, like, because that's it is. I believe that's where we get to the nitty gritty shit. Like, get past the what we want to talk about, and then let's have those real conversations that need to happen. So it's flowing.
Yeah,
It's flowing.
Yeah.
I love it.
So congrats
Thank
to the
you.
longest.
Thank you, Mystery Mike. Those sunglasses are really giving me all the feels right now.
I'm ADD. I get bored over here, so I just start not bored, but you know,
He starts fucking with shit.
I start getting fidgety.
Do it.
Hell yeah, he's awesome, man.
Yes.
So, all right, everybody, take care.
Thank you.
Have
friends.
a good day. Hope everything's blessings. Freaking do whatever you want. Go enjoy your life.
I love you. Don't
We're
forget.
out.
See ya.
See ya.
Bye.